Welcome, everybody. We want to call to order our third quarter meeting for the Utah State Division of State Parks. We're meeting on August 18th, 2022, 9:30 a.m. at Jordanelle State Park, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here together. And so here with us today, we have our board members. I'm Corey Cram, I'm the chair. Alicia Cotharp is our vice chair. She's here with us, along with Russ Stedman, Joan Hammer, we got Brent Boswell, Kevin Christensen, Lisa Meertz, Claudia Jarrett, and also we have Natalie Randall with us remotely. Appreciate you joining us there. And then staff here with us today. We have our division director, Jeff Rasmussen, and deputy directors, Scott Strong and Dave Harris, along with staff members. We have Melanie Shepard, and we appreciate you taking care of some breakfast treats and arrangements yesterday. And also we have Susan Carisi, and Lori Backus is here with us as well. Other folks we have online, Wayne Monroe, Shane Stroud, and who else do we have with us online? If you could identify yourselves for us, please.
I think you probably got them all.
Is that everybody? Okay, some of those connections are probably just our IT folks. All right, well, thank you. Our first item of business is to approve our agenda. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at the agenda as it's been presented and shared with us? I'd accept a motion to accept that as agenda as it's prepared, or as it's presented.
I'll move that we accept the August 18th, 2022 agenda as prepared.
Okay, I've got a motion from Joan.
I'll second.
Second from Alicia. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, so motion carries. We also have some minutes to approve, a couple of them. We have minutes from our February 17th and also May 18th board meetings. Has everyone had a chance to review those? Claudia, you had a chance to review those.
I did.
Appreciate it.
In fact, I'll move approval of the February 17th, 2022 minutes.
February 17th and the May. Okay, so a motion to approve the minutes from Claudia.
I'll second.
A second from Lisa. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving right ahead. Our board reports. Can we start with Brett and we'll go around the room that way? Do you mind?
Yeah, I had.
Brett has a list for us. Good for you.
Because my brain is small, so I have to write this. So I had an opportunity to swing by Otter Creek a few days ago when I was on county business in southern Utah, and I learned some interesting things. For one, that because the lake level is dropping, they're having cancellations like crazy. They're saying like 15 calls a day of people either call and ask the level and cancel on reservation, or call and ask the level and not make a reservation. There was one camper in the park when I was there, and that was actually a relative of one of the staff. But they were saying the fishing was still great. The fish were still firm. They didn't have any sores on them like they sometimes get. And so they were sad that it was so slow, but really, really dying off for them. And then they just had a power outage, and it was on the Garcane Energy's side of the deal, but it didn't cost the state anything. But no power meant no pumps. No pumps meant no water in the toilet. And so they got that fixed. And then the power company is saying that they need to go in and replace that whole power line. It'll all be on the power provider's dime. But they said once it's starting to deteriorate and go bad like that, it'll keep doing it. And but it was the thing that's awesome is I just love meeting the employees. You know, the park ranger was happened to be off that day. And so, but these two they were saying how the pumps went down one day and they didn't know to lock the bathrooms and people continued to use them. And they got kind of graphic on what they had to do with the gloves to get the toilets going again. And they're smiling the whole time. And they're like, but you know what? It's totally worth it to work for the parks. And I'm like, only in state parks. Or would the employees say something that's totally worth it after that experience? Because I would be in therapy. So anyway, but it's just always refreshing. most everybody knows that it sounds like Paiute. I didn't run over there, but it's empty, like dry.
Zero.
So that's pretty crazy. But so they're anticipating they've cut the water draw from Otter Creek in half, but they're still saying that at the current rate it'll be empty before long as well. So anyways, but the main thing I just love hearing it's crazy they talk about problems like that, but they're so happy to be there. And her name was Kathleen, I think. And then her husband, I didn't catch his name. He come and talked to us after. He's a paid employee, but Kathleen's a volunteer, although he volunteers a lot too. Anyway, so that was my one report. Next time I'll have even more because we're doing a motorcycle trip and there's a bunch of state parks on the way that I'm going to insist that we peel off and go check them out. So that was my report so far.
So it was very fun to visit all these 3 parks this trip. It's great to get to some of these parks that I haven't been to in a while. This summer I took my family and we actually camped at Palisade, which, that's not very far from home. But while I was there camping, there was a neighbor of mine that was there camping too. So it's great to see that the local people like the parks enough to use them as well. It's not just people coming from outside the area. I've been out to Yuba quite a number of times. Boating this summer. Of course, that's closed now. The water level's like 5%. So I'm hoping for a good winter. Lots of water. I will be going down to Otter Creek here in a few weeks. We still have reservations. So that'll be our spot that we'll spread out and spend the Labor Day weekend. So I'm excited to go down and spend some time there. That's all I have is.
So I got a chance to meet with Jeremy Shaw out at Antelope Island and kind of drove around, looked at different things. They told me about the new visitor center and kind of being really excited about the money that they're getting for that. I also learned that they have some backcountry campsites, so I'm looking forward to going back and checking those out here soon. And then I went up to East Canyon and got to see some of the things that are going up there, including the new glamping that they've got going on and the concessions. Chris showed me the boats and things like that are going on. And then we went out and drove out to Lost Creek, which is gorgeous. And I'd been out there, probably my first, 5-6 years ago. And so you can even see the changes that are going on, but it's really exciting to see what that space is going to turn into in the future. And then I just realized, is Strawberry Reservoir also state parks? Oh, no. Well, I went there too, but it's not state parks. And then this fall, I'm hoping to convince my parents to go up to Bear Lake and camp up that way over our fall break.
If I could, I forgot one thing I was going to add. So they said the pump went out at Otter Creek, and there happened to be a guest there who was like a national consultant for pumps. So the thing went out, so that guy found his way there, and he stayed for 3 extra days. And he said he taught us stuff about our pump system we didn't know. He got him going again. So of course they comped his stay, but the guests, the staff, it's just unbelievable how awesome. Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, I was fortunate to get an invitation from Devon. I don't know how many didn't get one, but I ended up going to Willard Bay for their ribbon cutting for their pond. And took my little grandson, who's 10. He wasn't very talkative because we were all adults and he was the only kid there. But he really enjoyed it, especially the raspberry. Yeah, yeah, they were really, really good. So it was a great ribbon cutting. In fact, it isn't a ribbon cutting; it was an oar cutting. So it's kind of unique that they had us all sign an oar paddle, and then they cut
with the chainsaw.
Yeah, they had us all put on safety glasses, and it went. Zzz, and I'm going, wow, that was interesting. All prepared, just. Zzz. So I was glad I was able to do that. I haven't been to any other parks. I was going to be down in Snow Canyon, down in St. George for Tuacahn, but ended up getting COVID, rescheduled, they canceled Mary Poppins, so that one got canceled. So I'm not going again now till the 1st of September. But we'll do Snow Canyon and enjoyed reading about the Tortoise Trail. that's down there and hoping that I can work that in and go see that new tortoise trail. Maybe there'll even be a tortoise there, possibly, right? Don't know. And maybe even ride down by Gunlock. Wanted to see their new campground too. Don't know that I'll get over to Sand Hollow, but usually try to make that Sand Hollow, Quail Creek, all those parks that are down in your area, Corey. So that's my report.
There's more to Southern Utah than Tuacahn, but it's a good excuse to come see us. So I've enjoyed this past time. I had the opportunity to go to Goblin Valley when we had our ceremony, and opportunity to meet with the BLM and other partners and passing and accepting the additional land, and what, more than doubling, or what did that do to the tripled the size of Goblin Valley, made that one of our larger state parks, isn't it, acreage wise? I look forward to getting power in there, some other things. I also visited Antelope Island, and I just love the you can't beat the bison, and the geology is incredible there, and just it's a neat experience, and the history. I always enjoy going through the pioneer areas there and just taking all that in, and Antelope Island's a special place. I took my family camping here for a bit on Cedar Mountain, and while we were there, we took a little jaunt and we went up to Fremont Indian State Park, and we had an opportunity to stay in the pit house. And if you haven't done that, it's a neat experience, and we didn't know what to expect, but it was neat. Trying to remember the maintenance guy there that made that, Jim. I was thinking Jim. Hats off to him. And so he did a really incredible job with taking historical design of a pit house and making it to modern standards. So you went in, but it was still covered in dirt, and he made it with 4 poles. And so it was kind of like a pyramid inside, but with a flat top and a cement floor. And there were outlets. There was some kind of subtle lighting in there. And there was a heater, but we didn't need a heater. We had 6 bodies in there, and we were very warm overnight, even with the vent open. And I gave somebody the assignment to open the door if it got too hot, and they failed. But beds, there's a queen bed, and then there's 2 twins with slide-out trundles and nice mattresses, and we had just a fun experience. And the park itself is just really neat. There's a lot to see, and if you haven't had a chance recently to take in Fremont Indian State Park, go see it, and it's a fun one. And take your grandkids to go sleep in the pit house, Claudia. That'd be a fun
I
experience.
slept in a yurt at East Canyon, and that was just about the same.
Okay,
It was
well,
so hot in there. Bodies. I had 10 in there, and it was pretty warm.
that's a lot of bodies. I still get the opportunity to spend a lot of time with our local state parks. I appreciate all the good things going on there. And then I've been coordinating with Frontier Homestead State Park with some of their exhibits and working to help them. One of my hobbies is blacksmithing, and so I'm going to help them with some of their staff to better appreciate the equipment they have. And I've got 2 groups of guys coming over from the regional office next week, Thursday and Friday, to train them in blacksmithing and also just how to use their forge and basic tools. So Thursday and Friday, I have 5 guys, both afternoons, and we're going to play around and have a good time. So anyway, enjoy that as well. So, Joan.
So I hit Bear Lake again and Hiram. I haven't been great at just stopping in and finding park rangers around. So I promised myself in September I'm gonna make real appointments and go have real meetings. So that's kind of my plan. We stopped at Antelope Island. I had some folks with me that were from out of town, and it was the best because we pulled up and I said, the bison are really, you see them all the time, but sometimes you don't. So, I didn't want them to get their hopes up. We pulled in the parking lot and it was like somebody hit action and they just were all there, and it was just great. We hit East Canyon. We just spent the day with some young people from our neighborhood, and then Willard Bay. We did the We did the ore cutting. Devin is really stepping it up, you guys. He's really got it going on. And then the next day, it tested positive for algal blooms. I mean, algal blooms are like the COVID of
Yeah, of our water bodies.
waterways.
Mhm.
It just kills everything. It's just it's hard to get people to do anything. The water's really low, so it's but luckily we've got some construction that hopefully will be starting quite soon. And so if you're going to do construction, let's do it during a time where it's slow. But I think that the Light Park Fantasy at the Bay this winter will help a lot. I think that will kind of be a saving grace. So we're hoping to do that. So as of yesterday, the pond at Willard Bay is officially closed. But I talked with James this morning, the park manager, and the concessionaire pulled out, and it's just, I can't help but think it's a small contained area. I just can't imagine there isn't some kind of a way to treat it, because even when the water's low, it would be nice to send people there. In fact, my KSL radio ads right now may mention ponds, so I might want to give them a call this morning and have them change something up really fast. The saddest of all the news, though, is the World War II plane that had to emergency land at the Bay is being picked up today. It's been sitting in the parking lot all summer long, and it's been fun to kind of hit there. It's something really different, and but they're picking that up today. So, yeah.
Cool. So in the 1st of June, we had our UT board meeting at Bear Lake, and per my style, just like yesterday, I was late and missed the tour on the lake. So I got to go in and visit with some of the staff and just like have a little tour there and just find out how things are going. And it was on a Tuesday, maybe, that we started. I don't know. It's the middle of the week, so there wasn't anybody there. So it was nice. These guys had a really good boat ride out on the lake, but it was nice to get to visit with them and see how they were ramping up to get ready for their busy summer season, and kind of walk on the boardwalk there and see all of that. So that was fun. And then my family really enjoys boating, so we've had a great time at Red Fleet, Steinecker, and one time at Starvation this summer. So that's been nice to be over there. And Red Fleet is still not under construction yet from when you guys visited last time. So it's been able to stay open all summer. And about the 4th of July, people figured out that it was still open. And so it's been able to be used a lot the last couple of months. If you remember from when you go to launch your boat, it's very narrow. Like there's only a certain amount of area. So right now, she said you could still launch a boat. I don't think I would be comfortable launching a boat because I'm not the best driver. But you can still launch a boat there a little bit. And then Kevin said he was coming, and I'm like, instead of one cave, there's now 2 caves over there because the water's so low, but people are still loving it. They love to hike into the trackway. And there's a lot of beach area. When you don't have water, you have beach. And so it's great for paddleboarding and kayaking and all of that stuff. So people are having a good time. It's nice that Steinecker is open. I mean, from the dam project that was closed or low water for a couple of years to have water back in there. And it's been able to keep its water level pretty well through the summer. You can still launch 2 boats there. So that means there's quite enough water. And there's also some beach area there that's been cleaned up and stuff, and it's really nice. So, and then a couple of weeks ago, so the new Office of Outdoor Recreation, that's what we're calling it, right? Office of Outdoor Recreation. So they're going around and they're doing these plans around the state to figure out what recreational resources you have in your area. So I don't know I think that the Uinta Basin was the first one. I know, did they already come to you, or they are coming to you in the
So
next
is
week
that
or
the
so?
one that Utah State is doing? The guy
Yeah,
from
Utah
State?
uh-huh.
They
Did you already
came.
have yours? So it was nice to have all state parks were represented there from the Uinta Basin, and to get to like mark off what you have, your campgrounds, your trails, your everything, and then try to figure out how we can get some money from them, because they have, they're going to have money, and so and be able to like partner as communities with state parks and get some of that money into our communities. So I don't know if they've came to your areas, but if not, maybe talk to your tourism directors, and if they'll allow you to go to those meetings, they're super beneficial, and you can kind of see and maybe have some input on what's going on there.
Lisa, as a follow-up to that, I sit on the board.
Yeah.
If you have a project and you want to just run it by me, I'd be happy to look it over and
Perfect.
give you some feedback.
Okay. It was really beneficial. I forgot that you told me you sat on that board. A lot of us there were like, we didn't know who we were supposed to turn stuff into. Like, we have tons of trails and stuff that aren't on these maps, because it's like, where's the database? Who knows? Like, where are you supposed to turn it in and get it recorded? And so I think those are going great. And they're involving, I mean, there was state parks, national parks, BLM, Forest Service, county representatives. Like, it was a good turnout. So yeah, I know we're not all in favor of it, but like, we're going to have to embrace it. And so
You're not looking at
Claudia? Yeah, that was fun. I mean, we hosted the Big Ride 17, which used to come from state parks. So that was kind of different to have like a different angle on that. But, it's all outdoor recreation, and it's all keeping the people in Utah happy. And so you have to just go with it.
And to clarify, I'm all for recreation.
You had to bring it up. You had to bring it up.
I just was saying, I thought it was cool, and I thought it was really neat to have state parks there, like everybody involved.
And that could have happened without a new division, by the way. Just saying.
I know.
Hey, Russ.
All right. Since the last time we met, I went down to San Rafael Swell, and I had a friend that actually stayed in Millside, so I had an opportunity to go there. Water level was pretty low. Outside of that, I did take another motorcycle ride, and I went around Bear Lake onto the east side, and that new area over there is going to be the place, I think. A lot of people don't realize when they come into Bear Lake, it's so busy in Garden City, and then when you get on the other side, it's not. So I think that's going to be a really good opportunity over there. It was a great motorcycle ride. Next month, I'll be going to Otter Creek and also Kodachrome. We do an annual ride every year around September 11th, and we always stop in Kodachrome, and I love Kodachrome. They're always awesome to us there. We bring a bunch of motorcycles in, and they give us a place. We do lunch there, and that's something we do every year. So I'm inviting anyone who has a motorcycle to come on that ride. It's September 10th this year. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Natalie, can we go to you?
Sure. Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you for letting me join remotely this time. I have a kindergartner now that's starting school, and so first kid to do this, so it's quite the experience. So it's funny Lisa mentioned Strawberry, because I had to double check as well while I was thinking through all the places I visited. For some reason, I thought it was a state park, but corrected that it's not. With Leisha and Joan, also visited Bear Lake. Won't spend too much time on that. We got to jump on the lake through the Garden City entrance and take a tour. I've never been on the lake in June at that time of year when it is so quiet and there's glass water. The water was very cold still, but it was a cool opportunity to be able to go out in the lake and experience that without all of the crowds and the other boats that are typically out there. Schofield, I had a unique opportunity. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet with any park managers, but was driving along Highway 6 north, and there was a large accident on Highway 6. So had to take the detour down 96 to Schofield to drive down the canyon and over towards Fairview area. And so got to spend some time in Schofield, had my 5-year-old with me, and we had our bikes. So we got out, stretched our legs and biked around a little bit, checked out the campsites and everything. That was back in June, so the water was still a little bit low then as well, but good to be able to see that park and experience that. I didn't get to go to Dead Horse State Park, but just wanted to share some perspective from the tourism industry there. And while I was reading through all the state parks updates in that packet, which is so helpful, again, thank you to the staff for pulling that together for us every meeting. Did notice that Dead Horse State Park 2 is also seeing some softening and some reprieve from all the visitors, which it sounds like is relatively slightly welcomed with, all of the COVID social distancing rush that happened in 2021. But throughout the state, we know that a lot of the national park areas are experiencing that softening. Working with the state tourism office, still trying to fully understand and wrap our heads around exactly what is causing that softening. But it's a layer of so many different things, from potentially the thought that the piloted timed entry at Arches is something that's occurring at all the national parks. So there's some conversation that needs to happen there. There's the layer of, it was a COVID summer and all of the visitors that were coming in and social distancing during that time frame, inflation, gas prices, as we know, a slow return of international visitors, and then also that layer of the euro compared to the US dollar right now and how much cheaper it is to travel in Europe. And so a lot of our international visitors that typically would be coming back just aren't coming back to the areas. So a lot of different factors there, but thought I would surface that as well from the tourism industry side of things. And then I also wanted to note, and I thought I was behind the times in this, but Chris Hansen, so he's our state parks manager down at Edge of the Cedars. He was awarded the 2021 Manager of the Year for state parks, which is so exciting for our region and so well deserved for Chris. So I wanted to do a shout out to him. And I think everybody should check out that Good Day Utah news piece that came out on him, because so there's a resident turkey down there, Gatsby, who's actually the owner or turkey handler. I don't know what you call that. Kathleen's a good friend as well. But Chris has there's a whole piece about Chris and his interaction and inner turkey talking skills. So a fun piece to see. And again, so well deserved on Chris. Has been there since 2016 and has made so many improvements to both Edge of the Cedars and Gooseneck State Park since his time. So I feel that's really well deserved and wanted to give him a shout out as well.
Thank you, Natalie. Appreciate that. A couple of things that I neglected to mention was, I think that since our last board meeting is we had our grand opening down at Gunlock with the new campground. Was that since the last meeting?
Yes.
And if you have a chance to swing through there and just check out the new campground, it's just a really nice addition. Fits in really well with the conditions there. It's just turned out really good. And John is just doing a bang up job with there, bringing power and utilities and just turn that park around. It's got so much more potential. It's just good things are happening there. Last week I was out at Price and I did stop and visit Millside as well. We got some great little hidden gems and beautiful places. And then normally I talk a lot about our local parks here in Washington County, but I should mention that we have just kind of a rapidly developing project, is we have an opportunity working with our partners with the county, the Greater Zion Group, and the Water District, the state parks, to resurface the road that goes around the reservoir. So from the entrance where you turn off to go around the reservoir all the way around to the south end and around to where there's the new campground going on the east side, pulled together some funds from the county and through Scott dug in his couch cushion and found quite a bit of money and making that happen. And that's just going to be huge for Ironman, to give them a nice cycling surface is what they're looking for. And that road needs some help, and it'll just freshen up the park, make it look just really well maintained. And that's a big thing. And it's nice to see the county stepping up and putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into that, and the division helping out to make that happen as well. Anyway, we just appreciate our partnerships, and you hear people talk about all over the state here are some of our local Bureau of Reclamation projects and the matching monies that come out of them and how cooperative they are with what we see, and good things elsewhere. I don't know where this came from, but you notice you have a little bag there. And inside of you, check to see what you have. There's a nice little shirt. So you don't have telephone booths anymore, right? But I did find a telephone stall. So inside the stall, there is a note about you're here reading your telephone. So I think it's a telephone stall. I wasn't reading my telephone, but it was a good place to change a shirt. So anyway, thanks for the shirt. And anyway, appreciate everybody here. Anyway, thank you to all our board members for interacting and supporting our local parks and visiting, and for all your help and insight there. And our division staff always appreciates both the positive and any negative that you see. Things for opportunities for improvement, and don't hold back with that. But I always just love to see our people out on the ground, and like Brent talked about with just even our seasonals are always so positive, and that's the first face you generally see when you come into a park is that seasonal person, and we get good receptions and we have good people, and that's worth a lot. We appreciate that. Let's go ahead and go to our division reports. And Scott, you're first on the list, if you wouldn't mind.
Great, thank you. I want to echo what you've said, Corey. Just appreciate the board and each of you individually. It's fun to see, to actually go out and experience a park and see it together, and to see your reactions. I love to hear the reports as to your experiences that you've also had in our state parks. And I've encouraged a couple of people. Russ and I were talking about him inviting his family to come on some of these board retreats, and I would definitely encourage that. I loved seeing Claudia's grandson at the pond grand opening. That was great. And that's kind of what we're about too. We like to incorporate our family and friends into what we do, in part because we love what we do. I also want to thank Bruce and Studi for yesterday and the time that they took to spend with us to show us the park. That was seriously the third time that Bruce and I have done that tour together, and he does such a great job. And Studebaker there with all his statistics and number of sites and things like that, it's pretty incredible. And I have to also say they're just such a great team. My daughter worked there for 2 summers, and she just talked about Studebaker and he was, as far as he was able to express the expectations there, but then he would come and bring not just my daughter, but all the seasonals. He knew what kind of candy bar they liked, what kind of soda they liked, and he would just come on certain days and bring them a soda and say, hey, take a 5-minute break, go for a walk, and I'll take take over the entrance station or whatever. So anyway, and that's just a small sample of the great staff that we have. They're so dedicated, and again, I just take my hat off to them as well. And then Luke and Colin yesterday with the Utah Olympic Legacy Foundation. I can't say enough about our partnership that we have with them. I've worked with Luke for probably 5 years now, and again, just a great person. I thought it was funny that Colin pointed out that Luke is an Olympian. That's something that Luke really keeps close to his vest. He doesn't promote that, but it is fun to talk to him about his experiences. And again, they're just great partners to have with us, and they run a great operation. And I want to just share my gratitude for all of our state park staff, for those who are here, those who are online, and then those who work in our Salt Lake office as well as out in our state parks. I feel so lucky to be associated with many great and dedicated people. And lastly, not to correct you, Corey, but yeah, we did dig into the couch cushions. It was actually just couch that we dug into. And then Wayne, I think Wayne's online, but Wayne did a little digging too and helped with that project. It was really fun to work on that. And typically our construction projects take months, sometimes years to complete. And we were asked to do this in about a month and a half to get this all ready to go because of the upcoming Ironman. And Chase, who manages our construction section, just did a fantastic job, and it's actually going to come to fruition, which I almost can't believe. I can't wait to see it, because we just haven't had construction projects like that where completed so quickly. So now I'll jump into my report. I have really three things that I want to report on. Our building block requests. So building blocks are the requests that we make to the legislature, as well as the governor's office. And all of our requests are coming from our restricted account. That's the money that we collect from fees at our parks. And we always kind of look at that like it's our bank account, but we have to ask for permission to use some of that outside of our appropriated budget. So I'll talk about the building blocks. I'll give you a summary of the profit loss from the last couple of years. I think Corey, you asked some questions about what's happening financially at Deer Creek, and you'll get a sense of that, as well as Natalie. I really appreciated some of your background that you've done to figure out the decline, and I'll talk about that when we go over the profit loss. And then the last thing is just the year-end closing. I'll briefly touch on that. So let me jump into the building blocks. The first building block that we have is the Great Salt Lake State Park water line. We have a critical need for a water line out there. We were hoping to do it for a much lower cost, but because of the remoteness of the park and the availability of culinary water in the area, it's really hard to get to. That project is scheduled to be about a $6 million project. We're hoping to partner with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands because they operate Saltaire, which is just our neighbor, to help with some of those costs. But we're anticipating that project to be about $6 million.
What's the current pipeline that's going across the causeway? What's the current pipeline that's going across the causeway out to the park now?
This is Great Salt Lake State Park that he's talking about. So it's on it's on the other side.
And
Right.
yeah, at Antelope Island, that's actually a storm drain.
That's okay.
Yeah, that 24-inch pipe that we're putting. The next one is staffing. As we all know, seasonal wages and wages in general have gone up over the last few years, and want to pay our folks better. And we're asking for just over $1 million for that. We have increased costs as far as operating day-to-day operating costs. We call those current expenses. So we're asking for $750,000 for those. We have a law enforcement equipment need. We're replacing some of the rifles and handguns that our rangers use, and we anticipate that cost to be about $250,000. The next one is golf related. There are two parts of this. The first is water storage. So when we were at Soldier Hollow yesterday, you probably saw how nice and green the golf course was. There's a lot of effort and work that goes into that, and a lot of things that we've done to reduce the need for water. But long term, we see that water is going to be an issue. So what we want to do is we want to build a pond farther up on the course, and that'll help not only with our pumping costs, with electricity and pumping costs, but it'll also give us more pressure for the upper holes that aren't getting water right now, or that we're having a hard time watering, as well as there's sand and silt that have gotten in the pipeline. And when you pressurize it with a pump and push that water up into those sprinklers, it causes problems with the nozzles, as well as it's eroding the pipes themselves, and they're becoming pitted, and they're going to be we'll need to replace them sooner if we don't fix that problem. So we're proposing to build a water storage pond, as well as to replace golf carts at our courses. Our golf carts are about 10 years old at Wasatch and Soldier Hollow, and then those trickle down to Palisade and Green River. So the carts that are at Palisade and Green River are even older. This will help us to kind of refresh that, get us on a new track where we can turn the carts over more frequently, probably every 3 years, and give our golfers a better experience there. The next one is
How
lodging.
much on that one?
That one's about $650,000. The total request is $2.6 million for golf. The next one is $500,000, Claudia, for lodging. Thank you for keeping me on track.
Just writing it all down.
I know, which is great, because I'm gonna be looking for the total. So lodging, $500,000. This is, like Corey mentioned, we have pit houses, we have yurts, and as well as the tiny houses that we've talked a lot about. And this will give us an ongoing $500,000 to offer those, or to buy those and then offer them in our parks. It was really neat. Last night I was on Facebook for a minute as a side note, and at Echo State Park, they had a really cool snapshot of the park that's being completed. I think it's slated to be completed this fall, but anyway, they had 2 park model RVs in the picture, and that was just really neat. And then the last one is 4.75 million, and that's for you, Claudia. And that's for park improvements at Jordanelle State Park as well as Echo State Park. We have a few things that we need to do at Echo State Park as far as a maintenance building, and then at Jordanelle State Park, we needed more money to develop the Rock Cliff area. The bids that came in originally for that area were much higher than we had money for, so we're asking for more money to build out that area. Which, if you haven't been over there, I hope that you can get over there today and just see that beautiful area. And when we build a modern campground in there, it's just going to be a gem. So those are the building blocks, and Claudia is going to give us the total here in a minute. I have a quick
I'm
question.
sorry, I wasn't adding it all up.
So when we sell things like, okay, we get new firearms and golf carts, eventually those go up for sale. Does that money go back to state parks, or does that go to the state? Or what happens with, because we paid for them, right, out of our money?
Yeah, so that money actually comes back to us. And a lot of times, both with the firearms and the golf carts, what we do is we trade them into the dealer. And the golf carts is kind of interesting that we get more from a trade-in than we would if we sold it through state surplus. So those are really our 2 options, is to go through state surplus or to trade them into a dealer.
That's great.
Yeah. And we do the same thing with the firearms.
15 million?
That's what I got too. Claudia. Now I want to jump in just very quickly to the profit and loss and give you some history as far as what has happened, and then what happened between this year. When I say this year, I mean the last closed year, which is fiscal year 22 compared to fiscal year 21. Several people, including at Deer Creek State Park yesterday, they were talking about a bit of a decline. And I think, Natalie, you were also mentioning that you've seen that both at the national parks in your area as well as at Dead Horse Point State Park. So from what we saw was that there was about a 26% decline between FY22 and fiscal year 21. And really, we attribute most of that to the COVID year. There were all these get out and play advertisements and promotions, and I think COVID just knocked that out of the park, and people wanted to get outside and be outside. I think people were working from home, and they had more maybe discretionary time to do some of those things, and they did. They got out and they found our parks and played in our parks, which is great. And then this year we've seen a decline, that 26% decline, which sounds dramatic. But again, you're kind of looking at an anomaly in fiscal year 21. So if we remove fiscal year 21 and we go backwards and compare fiscal 22 to fiscal 20, we were actually up 53%. So while we see that kind of spike for 21, when you look at the growth curve, we're still growing. And in fact, we're growing really rapidly. I'll go back even farther. If you compare fiscal 22 to fiscal 19, we're up 73%. And then if you go back 5 years to fiscal 18 and compare that to fiscal 22, we're up 124%. So again, that I like the feedback and kind of research that you've done, Natalie, but when we look at the trend, it's still a very positive trend, even though we have that little bit of a bubble in 21. And again, when we talk about the profit loss, this is operating profit and loss. So it doesn't include the capital costs that we experience in our parks. And we are self-sufficient in that we use those profits and the money that we generate to run our state parks. And when you look at it that way, pretty much in total, we break even, and which is a great thing at the end of the day. So, Chair, that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Scott?
I have a difficult maybe question to answer, but
Is that
so when you have all that increased visitation, right, you're getting more fees in. How much of that fee, right, essentially is just covering the additional use versus being genuinely additional revenue that you can do new things with?
No, that's a great question, they said. And really what we saw is that during that period of time, we had to pay people more, and then our costs also went up. So really, when you look at the best indicator of that is how much additional money went into our bank account, essentially. And our bank account was pretty flat in that period of time. So we were able to keep up with the expenses and the increased costs, but we weren't really generating much more income.
So with inflation now, what's the projection looking forward? Are you still going to be able to stay in black, or is it going to be tricky?
It will be tricky. When you look at the consumer price index, the consumer price index rose at like 9.8% last year, and there's still some increases going on. So that's why we're asking for the additional money, that $1.75 million is to help with some of those added costs and the inflation that we're experiencing.
Thank you. Anything else for Scott? Okay, Dave, can we go to you next?
You bet. Thank you. Yesterday was a lot of fun, so I hope everybody had a good time. And thanks, Melanie, for putting that together, and for all those that helped out from park staff and the Olympic Legacy Foundation. It was a good time. Last night was great to sit down and chat with folks for dinner and hear from Jonathan all the cool things that are going on there at Wasatch Mountain State Park. And hopefully you all had a chance. It sounds like a few of you have read the board report, all the reports from the park. So I'm not gonna, I always think, what am I gonna say here? But I go, man, the parks do a really good job, and the region managers of compiling that information and putting all those pictures in there to actually show what's going on. If you've looked at that, you can see it's been an amazing summer. A lot of progress. A lot of times we don't get a lot done in our parks because we're hosting the public, but I think we're getting a lot done in our parks additionally to hosting the public and doing search and rescues and all the other things that are digging stuff out of the toilet, all the stuff that goes on in the parks. But we've got an amazing staff, as we mentioned several times. Some of the things are going on around the state, just operationally, I guess. Last year we had van tours for staff, and we broke them up into new employee van tours and ones that have been around, manager van tours. This year we're just combining. We're doing the same thing again this year. We're combining. Any staff that wants to go can go on either tour, no matter how long they've been with us. Probably 40% of our staff are less than 5 years. So, the majority of folks are going, whether they're a manager or not. They've probably been here less than 5 years. So we're really excited about that. September 14th and 15th, we'll be touring the Basin area, Steinecker Red Fleet and Utah Fieldhouse, and Fred Hayes at Starvation. So we'll be hitting those. And then early November 1st through the 3rd, we'll be hitting part of the North region up here. I think starting at Antelope Island, Bear Lake, circling back around and hitting some of the parks we saw yesterday. So those are exciting. If you're able to join us, that'd be great. Or if you just want to find out where we're going to be for lunch or dinner, you're welcome to stop in and visit. We'll have quite a few staff there. The tour for the Basin is full. We have probably 25 people going on that tour, so we're excited about that. About half that many have already signed up for the November tour, but we left the deadline open, so hopefully we'll get a few more sign up. On the HR side of things, we have a lot of movement going on still, but actually the number of positions that we have vacant right now is probably lower than we've had in the last couple of years. We have 7 positions vacant. We've probably been hovering around that 12 to 15. That's out of about 200 full-time employees. But looks like we're maybe getting caught up. People are wanting to come back to work and are looking for jobs. We just, when we acquired Echo State Park from the BOR, or the ability to manage that park, we lumped that in with Rockport State Park and called it a complex. That park manager managed both parks. Well, through some resignations and other things, and Echo is about built out now, we decided to split those parks out again. So we just hired a park manager to manage Echo on its own, and that's Ben Mraz. He was the assistant manager over Lost Creek. So we're excited about that. He's a great guy, and he'll do a really good job there at Echo State Park. We had a ranger recruitment that closed a month or so ago, and we, out of the whole recruitment, we only had 3 viable candidates, and out of the 3 viable candidates, we actually only have one that stuck it out through the whole process. So kind of disappointing there, but we just opened a new recruitment, which the deadline closed, and we had over 100 applicants, and we have 33 that we're inviting to interviews, and they seem very well qualified. So big change from just in the 3 or 4 months between the 2 recruitments. So like I said, maybe things are turning around and people are wanting to come back to work.
So I have a question for HR wise. What's kind of a feel for the average age for our employees, or how many years of service for the average employee? Just, do we have a pretty young workforce at this point?
We're actually on the ranger side of things, we're actually getting a different kind of people putting in for the jobs for the most part. We're traditionally have been, hey, you went to school for parks and recreation, you got a degree, maybe a season or 2, you're looking for a parks and recreation job. We're finding a lot of people that are, maybe in their 30s, young 30s or older even, that want a career change. They're tired of what they're doing. They want to look for something else. And that might, and maybe Lisa has input on this. I think things have changed that way. Folks have, I was 8 years old. I knew I wanted to be a forest ranger, whatever that meant, but I don't think there's a ton of people like that anymore. I really don't talk to many people in that situation. And it's kind of exciting to see people in their 30s wanting a new career. Some of the interviews I've been to recently, we've even had, probably, we can't ask how old they are, but people in their 50s that are retired from law enforcement and from a previous 20-year law enforcement thing and are looking for a different kind of law enforcement. So we've had quite a different variety of just the kid out of college looking for a job.
Thank you.
Let's see. And I can't remember the name of the House bill, but a couple of years ago there was a bill that required all state law enforcement agencies to develop a pay plan. We already had a pay plan, but we solidified it and kind of made it a guideline. And so now we have for law enforcement staff, we have a pay plan that says, you'll start at this rate. And a lot of the pay plans that other agencies have is kind of like the military. If you just do your time, you get a little bit of money every year. But we look at that differently. We're paid for performance. And so we call it a SIP, a salary improvement project. So if somebody does an additional project throughout the year that between them and their supervisor they agree to, and some of them are like, some of the parks, they have a boneyard where old picnic tables and buoys or whatever gets thrown in a big pile. And some of the projects have been clean up that area, and some projects have been replace all the signs of the park that are faded and old. So those are just a couple varieties of the projects that get done. But anyway, if you complete the project, then you move up that scale. Every year you can get a 3% salary increase. So it sets a bottom of the range. They call it HR for like our park rangers, our assistant park managers, and because our law enforcement and non-law enforcement rangers and managers are all tied together, there's a big benefit. Everybody in that whole series gets that same benefit. So that's probably 2/3 of our staff that are in that situation. So we're excited about that, and hopefully that'll help with retention and recruitment. Other things working on, I've been working to update our guidelines, which have been a number of years since they've been updated, and it's been quite a massive project, but we're getting through it, and hopefully we'll be done here, hopefully by the end of the year. And some of those are, housing, personal appearance, fee compliance, uniforms. I mean, we have, probably 50 or more guidelines. And I like things simple. So if there's a department policy, which, that we can use, we slash our guideline and just go with their policy. And we found probably over the last year, we probably found 3 or 4 guidelines that we've been able to just get rid of. One big event that occurred this year on our law enforcement side of things is there's a national, over the 4th of July weekend, it's called Operation Dry Water. It's a national initiative where every state, commits officers to bodies of water to look for intoxicated boaters. And this year in Utah, we had 5 locations where we had officers that got together to do this project. And during that couple days over the weekend, they contacted over 2,000 people. They inspected almost 500 vessels, stopped and actually did an inspection, make sure they had life jackets and all the safety equipment. They got 7 drunk boaters off the water. So that's the goal of the whole thing. So that was awesome. And then they had 108 citations for equipment, not enough life jackets or the boat wasn't registered, those kind of major things that we look for. So hats off that we incorporate the help of county sheriffs, Forest Service officers, all kind of officers come and help with these BUI enforcement efforts. And that is all I had right now. I've got a bunch of stuff later on, so I'll kind of try to keep it short.
Very good. You mentioned signage, and you've probably noticed that there's an effort underway to replace the entrance sign. Saw a bunch when we visited Alicia's area a few months ago. Anyway, I appreciate that, and it's looking nice, and appreciate that. So what's going on with that?
Lori Backus is our force behind that.
You're the sign queen.
She keeps it moving for us, so she's doing great.
Well, it's looking nice. Good. Well, that's good. We'll go to our director, and would you mind also just mentioning that to everybody, you may already know that Brian Steed has retired, Deputy Director Director of Natural Resources, and we have Joel Ferry. If you want to just mention that.
I was going to finish with that, but I'll start with that.
Thank you.
So yeah, we just got a new boss a couple months ago. Brian Steed, our former director for Department of Natural Resources, I think he served about 2.5 years. Got what sounds like a pretty cool position with Utah State, really in Utah State.
Okay.
Yeah, up in Logan, and kind of back in his neck of the woods where he wanted to end up, and still a position up there that revolves around natural resources. It's land. I think it's something I can't remember what the title is, but land, water, and air. So he's doing a lot of natural resources stuff, but I was kind of ticked at him because it takes a while to get used to a new boss and a new director, and I felt like everything was clicking. I'm like, dang it, Brian. everything's clicking right now. I don't blame him. It works better for him and his family, and I wish him well in his future endeavors. But as that position was vacant and we were hearing rumors about who might serve in that position, Joel Ferry, who's currently a legislator in northern Utah, was one of the names that came among many others. And I know Joel Ferry from working with him in the legislature, and he's just an exceptional guy to work with. He's smart. He's level-headed. He's approachable. He cares. I think he's going to be a tremendous director, and just really looking forward to working with him. But I think it means a lot when you work with someone and you see those qualities, and just knowing that he has that and bringing that to DNR. I think he's going to do a really good job. I just hope that we can get someone to stick around for a while. Since Mike Styler left, probably 3.5 years ago. This will be our third director for Department of Natural Resources. I think prior to that, Mike Styler was there in that position 15, 16 years. So it was a big change for DNR, but Joel's my boss. And so you might think that I'm just flying the flag for Joel, but I really do believe that he's going to be an exceptional director for Department of Natural Resources. And I'm looking forward to working with him in that position, but just couldn't be any more excited.
Thank you.
But I do believe Joel's on a fight right now. I kind of, that's not a small assignment, being the director for the Department of Natural Resources. And on top of that, he's still kind of juggling his legislative responsibilities. And so he's up to his eyeballs right now, but he's going to do a great job.
I'll second that. He's from my area, and he's the real deal. He's younger too, so maybe he will stick around. He understands this world, and I think that will help a lot. But he does have a lot going on right now. Not to mention he manages many ranches and farms, so he'll be good.
He will be, but thank you. Now I forgot what I was going to say. On the signs, we were talking about the signs before we jumped into Joel. I just wanted to mention, those signs, we're pretty proud of them, but they're not cheap. They're about 18 grand a piece, which, isn't that right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay, so 20 grand plus. That's a lot of money to spend on a sign, but the last signs that we did for the division 30 years ago, they lasted 30 years. Now, whether or not they really lasted 30 years is debatable because a lot of them looked horrible. But when we were talking about spending this money, we talked about how with your house, the front door sets the impression for the entire, stay in the house. We look at the sign way, set the tone of visit of our visitors. We want them to know that they're to a significant destination, and we think it's important that we greet people with something really magnificent. And what I love to see now is we're seeing people taking pictures of themselves and their family next to those signs, and that was the whole point of it. And we may have copied that from another agency, but I think ours are even better. And I think it's worth the investment, and these signs are going to last. Other than the one at Wasatch that got run into by a drunk driver about 2 months after we finished it, they're going to last 30, 40, 50 years. And the beauty of it is the base is made of rock, so if the sign does fade, you just pull the sign out and replace it. But we are very proud of those signs. I think that they're going to be setting the tone for our parks for a long time to come. So thanks for bringing that up. Great. And I can't resist making a comment on Brent's comment about stuff. I always say when you work in state parks, no matter what your position, you're going to get stuff on you. You're doing your job. There will be a time that you get stuff on you, right, Lori? So, yeah, all kinds of stuff. No one mentioned that, but you do it with a smile. You do it with a smile on your face. So, no, we do have great jobs. We love our employees, and they love their jobs. They're here because this is their passion. This is what they want to do, and I think that reflects in the quality of service. When you love your job, you do a good job at it. So, just to appreciate all of our employees for the good work they do. And just one last comment before I jump in. I thought the tour yesterday was really good, and just want to thank Melanie for organizing that behind the scenes. There's just a lot of work that goes into that. But I've been to these parks many times, but I saw stuff that I'd never seen before. And I hate to admit it, but I'd never been to Heber Grove. And what a magnificent location. What a tremendous spot. And the group site above that. Our parks are so beautiful, and I think we're just blessed with tremendous resources here in Utah. So I think it was a great opportunity to showcase three of many of our just awesome parks. So just enjoyed spending the time with you. I don't have that much. I'll go through it should be pretty quickly. I wanted to mention we had Military Appreciation Day. It was last Saturday, right? Military Appreciation Day was a tradition that we started, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. It had been longer than that. We were in a board meeting, and unfortunately, we were eliminating a free day use pass for people with disabilities. And it was not a fun conversation, nor was it a fun thing to have to do, but it was a result of moving to a self-pay agency. It was something that needed to happen. At the end of that discussion, and when the decision was made to eliminate the pass, one of our former board members, Ryan Starks, made a comment, and his comment was, it would be really nice if we could do something to show appreciation for not only, and it was, he went to on the military, but not only for disabled veterans, but also for all military. And we took that and ran with it and started the tradition of one day a year. It's the second Saturday of August each year. We have free day use that we offer for veterans and active military. And I think it's been a tremendous success. It's always a challenge to do anything free or discounted when we have to pay the bills with the fees that we collect. But this is one thing that we can do that doesn't have a huge price tag that I think really makes a difference and gives us an opportunity to say thank you for those that have served our country. So we did that last Saturday. We recently bought additional American flags for all of our parks so that they can set those up at the entrances in addition to the flags that they already have to make that day special. And on top of that, each park usually does something extra that day to make the day special. The flag ceremonies, some serve lunch or breakfast. Utah Lake State Park did a field of, they called it a healing field of flags to honor lost military members. Camp Floyd State Park did a military reenactment to honor that day. But anyway, I just wanted to mention it just happened last weekend, and I think it's a really cool opportunity to recognize those who have served our country. And we're going to continue with that tradition. It's pretty cool. Several of you have mentioned water levels. I just wanted to go through some of the more significant issues that we're dealing with water. The severe river drainage, that was mentioned a couple times, and we talked about how Paiute's at 0%, just a river going through it. That's not necessarily super unusual for Paiute because Paiute usually gets drained down pretty low, but I think it happened quite a bit earlier than normal this year. Otter Creek's at 11%, but still usable. And the problem, what we hate is the press likes to talk about doomsday and how terrible things are. And I think that's been one of many factors that have lowered visitation at some of our parks because people think that, wow, Otter Creek's at 11%, there's no water there. Well, actually there is quite a bit of water there and it's boatable and still usable. Yuba's at 5%. Unfortunately, that's taking the water down below the ramp and you can't launch anymore. But up until that point, even at 8%, I was there boating with my son and pulling each other on tubes. And, the water was 15 feet deep, which is deeper than Utah Lake when it's full. So we had a great time, but it is a challenge. We have ramp closures at Great Salt Lake, obviously at Paiute. Even if we had a ramp that went further, just take you further out in the mud. Willard Bay, I mentioned Yuba. And then here at Jordanelle, the ramps at Rockcliffe and Ross Creek, I believe, are shut down due to low water, but our main ramp here on this side at Hailstone and the smaller ramp, the PETA personal watercraft ramp, I believe is still open. Quail Creek, the south ramp is shut down, and then we have ramp advisories at Bear Lake and Red Fleet. Now, with that being said, considering how bad the drought has been, we're still doing pretty good across the board with our water parks, and we're thankful for that. So hopefully the monsoon moisture that's headed north again is going to continue to help us out a little bit. Wanted to give an update on construction because the investment in our state park system has been so significant over the last 3 years. We've totaled it up and we're now over $200 million that has been combined with our fee money that we're investing in our state park system, as well as general fund money that we're putting back into our state parks to build new campgrounds, day use areas, improve trails, improve beaches, build 2 new state parks. And it's just an amazing and unprecedented time. And I just wanted to go through the projects real quick because we're finally to a point, there's been so much behind the scenes work that we're finally to a point where we're getting stuff done. And we've been getting a lot of work done, but it's the kind of work that you don't see. It's the environmental and cultural clearances. It's the design and engineering and all the other hoops that you've got to jump through. So we're getting to the fun part where you can actually see results. It was mentioned several times about the Gunlock State Park campground ribbon cutting. That campground turned out tremendous. Gunlock State Park is a diamond in the rough. It's always just kind of been out there, never really had much love or attention put towards it, and it is going to explode. It's a way to be able to disperse recreation in Washington County, and there's so much to do there, so much more than just what you see at the reservoir, and we're super excited about that opportunity. Just did the pond, and we talked about the unfortunate situation that we're dealing with there, but Joan, we're going to look for a solution. I don't know what there might be.
Something that we just dump in there and it makes.
There's got to be something that we can do.
An eternal rainbow and.
Yeah. Anyway, had a great time cutting the paddle with the chainsaw, and thanks to Devin and his creativity, we're going to continue to try to come up with creative grand opening opportunities to kick off these new recreational investments that we've made, and very many more to come. And I'll tell you, next year is going to be amazing with opening up new facilities. So Bear Lake, we've got 3 major projects that we're working on. And like Russ said, they just repaved the road on the east side, and I ride motorcycles too, and it makes for a great loop around the lake when you go up there. And the road is beautiful, not just for motorized recreation, but also for biking. I think they have a really nice bicycle lane on that side too. North Eden Campground, it's our furthest north facility. It's right on the Utah or the Idaho border. The fence for Idaho is literally on our property line, so can't go any further north than that in Utah. We finished the day use part of that development. It was beach improvement and a bunch of new parking spaces and a restroom. We're finishing up the campground. It's about a 35, 40 unit campground that'll have hookups. We've never had electricity and water there, so just like Gunlock State Park, that's going to be a huge improvement. That one will be finished next summer. Rainbow Cove, which is just a little bit to the south of North Eden, has a similar development where we're improving the beach, we're adding day use parking and restrooms and building a new campground. That one is also slated to be finished next year. The biggest of all projects that we're working on is our marina expansion. That's a $60 million project. Basically, it's going to take the footprint of the existing marina and add that to the north side of our property there. That project's going to take a while. There's a lot of work that's got to go into planning and permitting. We're currently working with the Army Corps of Engineers to work through their permitting process. And it's going to be a big project. We're expecting that we're probably at least I don't want to say at least, we're 2 to 4 years out. I hate to even think that it's going to take us 4 years, and I hope it doesn't. We're going to push for the 2, but that is a big project, and it's going to make a huge difference. And the marina expansion isn't just about expanding recreation facilities. It's also about addressing a safety need at Bear Lake. When the wind kicks up at Bear Lake, if you've boated there before, there's nowhere to hide. There's no coves to go. There's nothing. And everybody tries to squeeze into that marina to get off, and there's just simply not enough room for everybody to get off. And so this is gonna double our capacity to be able to get people on and off the reservoir or the lake, and that's gonna make a big difference. Most of you saw Deer Creek Campground yesterday. That's expected to be completed this fall. So hopefully we can do, Devin be thinking about something creative we can do there.
Pressure's on.
To
On budget and on,
open that one.
Don't give him too much.
on budget and on time.
Willard Bay, we have a big project at Willard Bay that was bid out and the contract was awarded to build new campsites, to improve the beach on the south end of the north entrance. And also equally exciting for us, reroute the traffic going into Willard Bay State Park. If you've ever been there on a busy weekend and even some weekdays now, traffic backs up onto I-15 and that's scary. Then we have UHP yelling at us and it's a safety problem. We're gonna reroute the traffic coming into the park. They're gonna end up going north, wrapping around that new pond area and then coming in. And what that's going to do for us, just like what they did at Bear Lake, it's going to add a lot of queuing distance to be able to get people off the highway and give us the ability to be able to move people to the park quicker. And Scott's talked about digitizing payment and the entry process, and the improved entrance with those kind of improvements is really going to make a big difference in getting people in quicker. But we're excited about that one. That one should be completed next summer. Antelope Island has 2 projects. The Visitor Center, that was a project that was funded this last legislative session. The previous legislative session in 21 funded a design and engineering, basically paying for design and engineering to expand the Visitor Center. This year, they appropriated $2 million to actually build it. And since the legislative session, we were also partnering with Larry H. Miller Group to add an Imac Theater out there. So it's turning into a really big project. The Imac Theater, the purpose behind that, they're going to be making a film on the importance of the Great Salt Lake to try to help people understand how important that natural resource really is. And it's not just going to be a run-of-the-mill film that you might see in a typical, small interpretation room. It's going to be an IMAX experience. When we were talking with Speaker Wilson about this, and we're talking about, if you've ever been to, I can't remember what's the park called, but they have this IMAX experience flying over California.
Oh, I thought it was Grand Teton that they had similar.
Well, the one I saw, you're in there and you feel like you're in a plane, but you're in a movie theater and soaring over California. Anyway, I still remember it was like 15 years ago, but you soar over the orange orchards and you smell oranges. And it's going to be an experience that we're going to remember. And the idea being that it will educate the public about the importance of Great Salt Lake. And certainly we'll talk about Antelope Island while we're in there, but also be a fundraiser to be able to invest in Great Salt Lake projects to address a lot of the major issues that we're dealing with right there. So that's a really exciting project. Don't have a completion date on that, but we'll shoot for next year. We have a new campground planned just below the Bison working corrals that overlooks White Rocks Bay. So the cool thing about that campground is it looks west. And when you look west from Antelope Island, you feel like you're in the 1800s, because other than that smokestack out there, it's unspoiled. It's going to be a magnificent campground. Unfortunately, that was one of several projects that when bid out, it came out at more than double what we had budgeted. So we're going to try rebidding this fall for a better cost on that. Escalante State Park, we have a new campground that's planned, and we've already bid the project out. We have a contractor that's selected, and completion on that one is expected in spring of 23. So that one's coming up quick. Quail Creek, have another campground that we're building. That one's also under construction. We're planning on having that one finished early next year. Echo State Park, we have phase 2 that's been underway for quite a while. That one adds significantly more day use and boat parking to that main access to Echo State Park, and a cottage village or a cabin village. And these aren't the traditional cabins that we've had in the past that Scott and I kind of joke that are kind of like tough sheds. These are little mini homes. So you have a bedroom and a bathroom and a kitchen, and some of them have lofts for the kids to sleep on, and some of them have porches, but it is going to be so cool. And it'll be on the north end of that development, right on the edge of the reservoir, and they're going to be amazing.
And
Did you have
air
something to add?
conditioning for Corey, yeah.
And Claudia.
Yes, sorry.
Who else? Oh, it was you that stayed in the pit house. Yeah.
Yes.
But by the way, I have to put a plug in for that pit house. Pit house sounds pretty rough, but it is amazing. It's now maybe when you try to squeeze 6 people in there, it's not quite so
It wasn't
amazing.
bad.
But
I mean, it was pretty spacious. It really was. We didn't feel packed.
Are they open year round?
it's really it's really cool.
It would be good to get a photo of that on the website so you know a little more of what to expect.
They
But
should have them. We did a photo shoot down there. So if he hasn't put it in, it should be on there.
Okay, I'm almost through these. Rockport State Park, we have a new day use area that's going in. That's the east side, right? Yeah, it's the east side of the reservoir.
Yeah, where everything else.
Just north, right north of the boat ramp, the main boat ramp.
For some reason, Summit County is the only county that I get turned around.
Okay, I won't mess with directions.
Yeah.
It's a new day use area.
Keep going to the road ends. It's
Yeah.
the end of the road.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a improved beach area on Rockport. So this is another expansion project. It's a new day use area, more parking, restrooms. That one should be, they're laying asphalt next week and should be completed next month. So there's another one for Devin's creativity. Here at Jordanelle, we have 2 projects, one at Rockcliffe, on the opposite side where the Provo River comes into the reservoir. There used to be a walk-in campground on that side, and for a number of reasons, it never really took off. One being the bridges going over to it washed out, whenever we had a big year. And if you've ever been over there, or if you have a chance to go over there, it is absolutely spectacular over there. It's heavily wooded. We have a nature center over there. It's a beautiful little spot. We're going to be building a campground in there. And then at Ross Creek, another entrance that way. That's another day use area where we're doing beach improvements, more parking. Unfortunately, both of these projects, when bid out, were way over budget, way over what the engineers' estimates were. So like, what was that other one I talked about? Like Antelope Island, we're going to wait until this fall and hope that we can get a better price on it. Sand Hollow, the new campground there was mentioned on, I know that is on the east side, because Corey said it was. It's on the opposite side as you drive into the reservoir. That's a brand new campground. It'll have hookups. That one is expected to be completed next month, but we have some issues with, you've heard about the supply chain issues, and I hear that electrical parts are super hard to come by, and they're giving us some really scary estimates that could be in the years to when we can get the transformers to power that campground. So I guess worst case, maybe we open it without the hookups, but that one.
Can we steal some from Bruce over here?
No. We want to finish that one too. Anyway, that one's coming up. 4 more. Green River, we're going to be adding campsites and a cabin village at Green River. The cabin village is going to go right on the Green River. So if you're familiar with how the golf course butts up to the river, we've got a little spot there that Scott had envisioned building cabins, and we're going to make it happen. And I think they'll be close enough to the water that you can cast your line out and sit on the porch and catch a fish while you're enjoying a beverage at night. What an awesome place to have it. That one's expected to be completed the end of next year. Red Fleet. Leisha knows we have a major renovation of Red Fleet State Park. The campground, the existing campground at Red Fleet State Park is probably one of our worst campgrounds. We call it kind of a Walmart parking lot. I love the park. I love the park. It's a beautiful park, but the campground is horrible. So we're going to rip all that out, put in a much better campground that's spaced out better, a new day use area and day use access. That one is completely designed, engineered, ready to go. We're just waiting to get the green light from the Bureau of Reclamation. We're hoping that we can have that one finished by the end of next year. Wasatch Mountain, we're where we were yesterday. When we were at the Olympic venue, we're building a campground just below that in the trees. That one was put on hold while we were working with the local community that was concerned with trees that we had cut down there. Long story short, we heard, and many of you, I think, saw an email from some of the local community that was concerned about cutting down these historic trees. We put the project on hold. We put our heads together to try to come up with some way to be able to incorporate the trees into our design and save them. We don't like cutting down trees either. It's, they're beautiful. They provide a lot of shade. We brought out specialists and an arborist to give us some ideas of what we might be able to do to be able to incorporate those trees into the plan. Unfortunately, they're in such bad shape, and even within the last month, we've had some major limbs fall down the roadway that we came to the conclusion with the recommendation from the arborist and our state risk management that we had to take them all out. And so we had a public meeting on that Tuesday night. And we're going to go ahead and go forward and build the campground. Now, that being said, we're going to step up our efforts, and we had 30 mature trees planned to be installed there. I told Jonathan, let's double that. Let's do everything that we can to make that place as green as possible and as beautiful as it is now, and show the community that we really do care and we want to make it beautiful. And, whether we build the campground or not, those trees need to be removed if it's open to the public. And to make those trees safe, basically what we were told was they would have to be trimmed back to basically a stump with cables, and nobody wants that. So it was kind of a hard thing to work through, but that project's back going again and should be finished by the end of next year. And then lastly, our two new state parks, Utah Raptor in Grand County. The design is complete. We had to put that project on hold for a little while we were trying to figure out where we were going to get water. We already drilled a well there. I want to say it was like 1,800 feet deep. Unfortunately, it's not a very good well. The water is usable, but barely usable, and only adequate for phase one. We have the potential to buy an existing well, but we're not sure if that's going to work out. But long story short, we're going to make a decision and move forward with getting the project bid out, and we're hoping to have that project complete by the end of next year. That's a really big one. And then the last one is Lost Creek. We were funded for half of that to build half of that park. I believe it was $7.5 million. So we'll call that phase one. That'll be a campground. Are you relatively familiar? Is there any day use improvements with that one?
There will be, so the first campground, the lower campground below the dam, and then as you head up towards the dam, the day use facility up on top, right as you get almost before you cross the top of the dam, that day use facility in the house would be. And then we're doing the primitive campground under our own budgets and with the region crew, just in the meantime. And then we've been replacing bathrooms with region funds and the region crew. So we've made improvements beyond already what the construction will be, just to get things going.
Awesome. I think, Lisa, you were there recently. Getting into Lost Creek, it is a beautiful little spot. Just the drive going up there is beautiful. So
just when you're driving, pay attention to the road, because you can drive off a cliff. So as you're looking around, be sure you're paying attention and going slow, because there's nothing to stop you from going off the edge.
That park is going to be amazing. It's going to be beautiful. So we're excited about that one. Phase one should be done by the end of next year. Anyway, I know that was a long list. but I think it's an impressive list, and we're super excited about all these projects. Last thing was just real quickly, legislative session is approaching. We hear throughout the year different ideas from legislators, some good, some maybe not so good. But that's nothing unusual. There is a bill file open for a new state park in, I guess, Salt Lake County, but it would be in the Upper Mountains between Salt Lake Valley and Tooele Valley. It's Representative Collard. Not sure where that one's going to go because the land is owned by Rio Tinto, and there's a lot of questions about how that might work and what it might look like. So I've been working with her with some initial discussions, and she's aware that, you know, whatever we do there, we've got to make sure that we can make a living with it. And there's a ton of possibilities. It's a beautiful mountain range. A lot of it is private, and that's unfortunate from a recreational standpoint, but we'll be keeping a close eye on that one. And I think a lot of what might happen is going to be dependent on what Rio Tinto wants to offer up, but that one could be really exciting. Other than that, I expect probably at least a handful of other ideas for new state parks. We've been on the radar, and you know, that's been a good thing. Look at the $200 million that we received, but I expect ideas for new state parks and new state monuments, just like we have for the last several years. I think it's likely that we'll probably get some more substantial money to invest in our state parks. I hear that there could be more money to invest in infrastructure, and certainly we'll welcome anything that they want to pitch our way on top of what Scott had talked about in investing in our state parks. Some of the scarier ideas involve free or discounted use, and I've had a handful of those this summer for veterans and for seniors. And you know, unfortunately, a lot of these ideas could be great, but we as we've said before, it's hard to give away use or give discounted use when we have to pay the bills from the fees that we collect. And the hard conversation that I have with so many legislators is we can't do both. We got to decide, are we going to subsidize recreation and give free use, or are we going to do self-pay? My personal opinion is that self-pay works great. The people that use the parks pay for the parks. And I fear that if we were to go back into a subsidized model, that when tough times come again, that unfortunately everybody loves recreation, but recreation is one of the very first things that's cut. And then you're talking about letting employees go and closing parks and cutting budgets. And we've been through that before, and it's not a good thing. So what I'm pushing for, and what the governor's office supports, and our DNR administration and most legislators, is self-pay works. So.
You have a thought on that? I wonder if there's an opportunity to build more partnerships with someone who will externally fund those free days. Right, like, so, and I'm thinking, I do a lot of work with kids, right? There's a lot of organizations that would pay for, you know, first graders to come out there or something like that. And that allows you to keep, so that you're not creating the discount, but that there's a partnership that is supporting that.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's an opportunity.
We do have several of those partnerships in existence now, where, especially with elementary school kids.
Yeah.
We do have those partnerships.
Because that,
yeah, and an idea that could definitely work.
yeah, because it allows you to maintain the structure that you've got.
Yep.
While creating the opportunities, which I think I'd emailed with you previously, but that's how you start to build future users, by looking for ways to get them into the parks.
Yep, good idea. Yes, that was next. So yeah, last thing, and it's a little bit different. We have a request for general fund money for Camp Floyd State Park Museum. We don't normally ask for general fund money, but there is a process through, we call it DFCM, but if you don't know what DFCM, I always have to write it down because I always forget, but it's Division of Facilities and Construction Management. They offer an opportunity to seek general fund money to invest in state facilities. And we do get somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million a year to put towards our museums. And that's the only part of our system that's actually subsidized by general fund money. And that was an agreement that we had with our appropriations committee, with the understanding that our museums are never going to make money. There's a cost to preserving and caring for historical collections throughout the year. So we felt that it was appropriate to ask for general fund money for this museum at Camp Floyd State Park. Camp Floyd is really a cool place. If you haven't been there, it's definitely worth a stop, but unfortunately our facilities there are really lacking. It's probably the worst office situation that we have in our state park system. We have 2 full-time employees that if they're not there together very often because they have to cover 7 days a week. But when they are, their office is so small, they can't back their chairs out at the same time, literally. And on top of that, to use the restroom, they have to walk across their day use area to use the restroom because there is no restroom in their building. So but that's not why we want to spend $16 million to build a museum. There's so much more that we can do to tell the story about that historic site. And we want to take a shot at building a real museum there to have something that will draw more people to that state park and support the community. And it's something that this project started last year with a request from the mayor of Fairfield City to build a building to kind of do the same thing. That kind of fell by the wayside, and this conversation has been going on a long time, but we had told him if it didn't work out that we were going to seek funding to build a museum on the state side. And so that's what we're doing. Fingers crossed it'll make its way through the system. If it does, that will transform Camp Floyd State Park Museum, our site there. So that's all I had. As I always do, I think I went further than I did, but I think we're still on schedule. So unless any of you have any questions or comments, or you want to throw tomatoes at me. And like Corey said, we want all feedback, good, bad, and indifferent. If you have ideas of how we can do better with anything that we do, we love to hear that kind of stuff. If you were at a state park and you had a bad experience, or someone had a bad experience, I want to hear about that too, because we want to provide a good service for the public. And our 3 priorities for our agency are customer service, facility care, and self-sufficiency. And we believe in those priorities. And it's important that when our customers go to our parks, they have a good experience, and they talk about that positive experience with their friends and family. So please don't hesitate to share ideas or concerns.
Questions for Jeff? Before I forget, Brandon, are you packing your little wallet?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. When you said, "Are you packing?" I thought you was going to ask me. You had my Glock on.
That's where my mind went too.
In the car. Yeah, those little cars were awesome. I didn't get one. Well, there's a reason why. Time we break it to Kevin, he's off.
Yeah, sorry, Kevin. Second tier list here.
We're talking about freebies.
Will you pass that down?
Mine. Kevin doesn't get a free park pass.
I need one over here.
He didn't
We were all about
There-
it.
You get a card.
We weren't at the last meeting, so.
I only have one.
All right, now we got to draw the line, Brandon. Yeah.
I do have a switch. You can't get these unless you're a state parks board member. Is that the deal? The little cards?
No.
Can other people have them? Can other people buy them?
We haven't gotten to that point yet.
Uh-huh.
We're careful about how we're using them. Next year, we expect to expand the program.
Because I have had a couple like,
What's that?
what's that? Uh-huh. Yeah.
And they just question, are you really on the board? Lisa?
Uh-huh. Well, they just are like, oh, I haven't seen that before. So.
I just want to take a minute and just express thanks to our executive team, Jeff and Dave and Scott, as we just appreciate all the good work you're doing. I look at you guys just personal friends, but also I appreciate the teamwork that you have. and how well you get along. But I guess my impression also is that you also are ones that can stand up for your perspective and your opinions and still have healthy discussions and make our division better because of it. Anyway, just really appreciate all you do. We talk about our park managers and just the great things that we see on the ground, our volunteers, but I also wanted to recognize, there's Laurie behind me, our regional managers. We have Wayne out there with his smiling picture. And Megan isn't with us today, but we have our regional managers, and you're all different from each other, but in great ways. And I hear positive things and enjoy being with you all, and appreciate all the good things you guys are doing. And I know, I guess I get the impression that you guys are solving a lot of solving a lot of things on the ground that these guys don't have to deal with, and there's a lot on your plate. So we just appreciate all you're doing. And Wayne, you're still smiling. Appreciate you. Wayne's always one. I always can call him up and just chat, and he's always available. And I appreciate the relationship, the friendship I have with Wayne. And anyway, appreciate all of you and all the good things you're doing. Thank you. Let's see if I had any other notes. Oh, I don't know if you've seen in the news lately. This is the place. Was in the news. We've got some new statues there honoring and recognize African Americans as they contributed to the pioneer effort and the settlement of the area here. And just if you haven't been there recently, gosh, even in the past year, there's a lot of changes. If you haven't been there for 4 or 5 years, get out there and drop in, just down off the hill. But incredible with what's being done there. And just a big thanks to Ellis Ivory with the fundraising that he does. And we put some money into that, but it's nothing compared with what he can do to leverage his funds and donations to make that an incredible part of, our system and just the rich resource that's there for you. And so for all of us, so take a special trip there and just drop in and you'll be impressed with what's there. And I like to go around and just talk to people who are visiting our parks and where they're from and what their impressions are. And you go, last time I was there at this place, there was like hundreds of school kids running around and they were having a ball. Just the things they were seeing and the people that were demonstrating, and it's just a great thing. So just a little shout out for This Is the Place, and go take a look at it. Let's keep on moving, I guess, and go to Scott. Lodging and camping fees discussion. Next on our agenda.
Perfect. Thank you. I'd like to address amending 2 groups of fees. The first is our camping fees. And we've had this discussion before. I think we had it down at the Water Conservancy District offices. And I can't remember even how long that was ago, but wanted to revisit that conversation. And as we've done that, what I do is I look at private campgrounds and other possibilities that are near our campgrounds and then do a price comparison. And when we do price comparison, it's also very important to remember that included in our camping fee is actually 2 days worth of day use fees. So when we talk about these fees, keep that in mind, that if you stay at a private campground, you're likely to come to a state park and then for day use fees at a state park. So I'll give you just an idea of, and these are comparable. I didn't take something and exaggerate it. I just looked for campgrounds in areas near our campground. So I'll give you a brief rundown of some of those. And there is a wide variety of fees, but Moab is at the top of the list. It's $162 at this particular campground to stay overnight. Then you look at Richfield at $126, Vernal, $126 again, Bear Lake at $114, in Hurricane.
This is for a
KOA.
full service RV hookup.
Not necessarily. Oftentimes it is a KOA, but
I only have a KOA. I mean, I have a Fossil Valley, but they're $40 a night.
yeah, it's so I didn't want to say who the private operator was.
Oh, sorry.
But it wouldn't be difficult to deduce who that might be somewhere. Thanks, Alicia. Sorry, Corey, what were you? Okay. And in Corey's backyard, you can camp there for $87 a night. Monument Valley, $83 a night. Springville, $83 a night. Beaver City, $70 a night. And then near Flaming Gorge is $67 a night. In Heber, these ones didn't list taxes, so I added in taxes. In Heber, if you wanted to stay in a campground, it's $107 a night. In Virgin, it's $79 a night. There was another campground in Heber where it was $69 a night. St. George is $63 a night. And then in Provo, near Utah Lake State Park, $57 a night. You compare that to when you stay at our state parks, we're capped at $40 a night. And the experience that you're going to have in a state park is so much different than you have at a private campground. Jeff and Dave and I, we've all stayed at, well, and I'm sure many of you have stayed at private campgrounds, and I'm just floored at some of the costs. I think of a campground that Jeff was at a couple of weekends ago and paid over $100 a night to stay in that campground. And he was literally, I would say 10 feet away from the next camper. And they had, I don't know how many sites, Jeff, 50 sites in that area.
I think there's close to 100 sites, but
yeah, and they were
$100 a pop.
Yeah, so they were next door to each other, and then you've got about a 30, maybe 25-foot road, and the same thing on either side of the sites that Jeff and his family were staying in. And I mean, the scenery is great, so I don't want to.
Well, it's in Island Park. I mean, how can you go wrong in Island Park? But
it
is pretty amazing.
If I'm camping, I want to be away from people, have more maybe privacy, and I think, Jeff, you used it more like a base camp than really anything. But again, just that experience versus when you come to a state park, and which is, again, when we look at like Red Fleet State Park, we recognize that we need to make a change there, and we are making a change so you have more space between sites and that sort of thing. But again, the idea being that we have to charge more than $40 a night. We've been at that cap for 10 years, over 10 years. And with inflation and increased costs, we're at a point where we would like to increase that to $60 a night. And that also includes taxes. So if anybody knows, I'm sure Joni and Alicia and Natalie knows that, and Kevin, well, a lot of you were in the tourism business.
So we could get more.
Yeah, and it does generate taxes for the visitor.
Pay TRT?
Yes.
Yes.
We pay TRT and sales tax. So when you look at that, it's about 15 to 17% in taxes that isn't included in that $40. So you've got taxes and then day use fees that aren't in that dollar amount. So
you want to tell them what we've heard from some private campgrounds too?
Sure.
Not other.
Yeah, in the northern part of the state, I won't be too specific about where, they actually came to us, a couple of campgrounds came to us complaining that our rates were so low that we were undercutting their business. They said, your campground fills up first, and then we get the overflow. They're happy to get the overflow, but they were saying that state parks needs to be more reasonable with our rates. And that's coming from private folks. So, those of you who went through Deer Creek yesterday, you might notice that in that new campground, we have water, power, and sewer hookups for all those sites. If this were a private campground in that area, you would be paying at least $100 a night. And I was talking to Studebaker. He actually approached me yesterday, and he's like, Scott, I've got this idea. What if, or how would you feel about charging $60 a night at this campsite? Because again, it's terraced, every view is perfect. I said, I'm like, Stephen, you're right on. I think $60 a night with 2 days of day use fees is a steal of a deal. I mean, it is. So again, I don't know what other information you might want or need, but based on the comparatives and as well as just the price increases, year over year price increases, if we went back to 10 years ago and used the CPI, it would be, easily double or triple that $40 a night. Yet we're asking to amend the pricing up to $60.
So will this lead each park to go up to the max? Can they charge differently for only sites that have water but no power, or so there's some discretion here? This is just setting the max.
That's a great question, Claudia. Yes. And it's dependent upon the amenities that are at that site. So we will have, amenities and demand is what the pricing is dependent upon. And we leave that with the park manager to make those decisions. They along with the region manager, and then Jeff, Dave, and myself will look at the pricing just to make sure that it's consistent. And
Just don't tell Studebaker that Leisha and who's with us? Leisha and Joan.
And now, yeah, Leisha and
For
Joan.
that Great Horned Owl campground.
Oh,
Yeah, we liked that one.
We liked that one.
isn't it great?
Yeah, I don't care that it doesn't have power. I was kind of sad that there was nobody camping down there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
it
all
was
decided we would
beautiful.
go there first.
Yeah,
We'll call it the J&L.
trees. It's all about the trees.
And
Charge more for
water
trees.
too. There was the.
It is.
It's similar. Some of the other private campgrounds will charge per person also, as well as they'll add in if your trailer is a certain length, that's another.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a dog versus multiple dogs or pets, then there's another upcharge.
Yeah, that company that we're not mentioning. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and other. But,
Do you think, I never say this, but do you think that, and it's putting a lot of trust into your park managers, that 60 is high enough? Or do you think that, Devin, right? I never say that kind of stuff, but I don't know. Like, I guess you just try 60 and then see how it goes and then raise it to 70 if 60 is not enough.
Yeah, we try not to have year after year fee increases. So we want to plan ahead, and we don't want to surprise our visitors with an increased fee every year. We would like to get ahead of that. And being forward thinking like that, yes, it'd be great to have a fee up to $100. But with the impending recession and some fears into the future, I think that might be too aggressive. $60 again is, I think, more than defendable. If you look at, again, the history of just the CPI and inflation and things like that, that even $60, we're not keeping up with the price trends. And we're not pricing people out. Again, you look at, I'm going to pick on Jeff again, but Jeff's, when he drags his trailer with his truck somewhere, it's probably pay, well, I don't know how much it would cost from your house to get to Jordanelle, but you'd probably pay more in gas.
Better not to think about it.
Yeah.
You just put it on the credit card.
Yeah. So anyway, there's an investment on the visitor's behalf. And then we also, to provide the experience that you have when you come to a state park, and I get it, I'll be the first to say I'm biased. So when I go to those private campgrounds that you're talking about, every time I'm thinking, oh my goodness, there's no grass here. The grass that is here is minuscule, and it's, I think of the campground that you go past when you go up to Steinecker or Red Fleet, and Dave and I drove past it or through it the other day, and I just thought, what is seriously, what is this? The people look
$6 a night, apparently.
Yeah. The people, they looked happy, but I'm thinking down the street. Yeah. So anyway,
It has good trees.
Folians, this doesn't apply to the shop.
Yeah, it has good trees.
so we're going to get into the lodging next.
What is the current structure? So the guidelines say up to $40, and then you would switch that to up to 60. I think as you talk about pulling trailers and having hookups, et cetera, that seems appropriate. And I do think that your park managers are probably smart. My only concern is like your tent campers. Does that allow their fees to go up to 60? Because I do think then you start pricing people out.
Well, it would be site dependent. So if you were to choose to go to Bear Lake and you wanted a waterfront property, but you were going, or a site, you wanted to tent there, that site could be $60. But if you're price sensitive and you just want to tent camp in a great location, I think a Little Deer Creek campground is one of those places where we're going to charge you, I think it's $14 right now, but so there'll be, dependent again on the location, demand, and amenities, we're going to price each site that way.
So I don't think this would happen. I'm just going to play a what if scenario. So you have your $14 campsite. The way that the guidelines are written, would it then allow that campsite? I don't think anyone would do that, but would it allow it to go up to 60?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could go up to 40 now.
Okay. And so the guidelines don't, you're saying that each park manager will take the kind of value of each site into consideration and price it accordingly, and that's allowed, that varies at the park level.
Right.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I thought Natalie has her hand up.
Oh, Natalie.
The camera.
Sorry, I think most of one question was addressed to Lisa, so thank you for that. My other question, and maybe you'll address this later, so I don't want to distract, but is there a cap for lodging as well?
I think that's a perfect segue into lodging. Both you and Claudia mentioned it, and I think I belabored the whole.
Oh.
And I don't know that there are any other questions about campsites, so I'll move on to lodging. I'm going to do the same thing with lodging that I did with the campsites. So I'll give you the comparative values or costs, and then I'll let you know what our current fee schedule is. So if you were to stay in Springville at the exact, it's actually smaller. It's a park model RV, and we call them, you can call them cottages or tiny houses. There's a lot of definitions out there. But it's a park model RV. It's $282 a night without taxes. And if you add taxes, it's $325 a night to stay in a tiny home that doesn't have the loft. So Jeff talked about how ours has a master bedroom. We also have a bedroom that has bunks in it for kids, and then a kitchen and a kitchenette and a small living room, and then the loft. So ours is bigger than this one. This one only sleeps 4 people. It's $325 a night. If you want to go down to Natalie's backyard, it's $253 a night. Back to Corey's backyard, it's $240 a night. Green River, you're looking at $190 a night. And then back to Richfield is $172 a night. Right now, our maximum fee that we can charge is $120 a night. And that includes taxes, as well as, I'm going to mention this again, your day use fees. So essentially your activities that you're going to do when you go to those other places are included in that $120 a night. We're asking to increase that fee to $200 per night. And again, that might sound somewhat drastic, but when you think of the number of people, we want to limit the number of people to probably 6 or 8 that will stay in our cottages. But the amenities, again, and the value that you receive for staying there versus even a hotel room, you're going to, if you were to go down to San Paulo State Park and stay in a VRBO or a hotel room, you're going to be over $250 if you have more than 4 people for sure. And
a tiny house on the south of the beach of San Paulo, I mean, a couple $100, that's a bargain. People will have such an incredible experience.
Yeah,
at our different parks.
And part of this is that it's just that idea. It's to provide an experience. And we already have tiny houses at Sand Hollow now. Just think again, Jeff talked about being on the Green River and on the bank of the Green River, and you're sitting on on the porch just enjoying the night. It's the same thing at Sand Hollow State Park or any of our state parks, that you're gonna have that experience for 2 days, which is just incredible for that
Even a
price.
hotel room in Green River is a couple $100.
Yeah.
Green River.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Sorry, this is so my other question is, as the park managers are thinking through their strategy, and I think you've potentially addressed this, but are they looking at, I mean, comparable like daily rates? I won't say room rates because they're not all rooms, it's with the camping too. Are they taking that into account as they're adjusting their rates at the regional levels? And then also occupancy as well. Are they looking at, we have quite a bit of occupancy, so maybe we need to adjust our rates appropriately? Or do they have a formula on a regional level that they'll be following consistently, or recommendations from leadership?
Yeah, we provide a lot of input and background as far as that goes. And certainly these decisions aren't made in a vacuum. And you make a good, you bring up a great question, Natalie, which is based on seasonality, which is demand, right? We also adjust those pricing. Because again, at different times of the year, you're going to have the amenities also change too. So yes, we do that just like a hotel would. You're going to have your off-season rates as well as your season rates. And we do provide a lot of input and feedback. Alicia joked yesterday on our tour. I'm infamous for saying, really, that's what we're charging? And, why are we charging that? Help me understand why we're doing that. So we do often provide feedback. And Jeff and I were talking the other day just about doing a whole looking statewide at our fees and saying, okay, are these accurate? Are these consistent? Do we feel like they're market values, or do we need to do some changing of those fees? So we do provide, I guess that's a long way to say that, yes, we do provide feedback and input as to how much we charge at different locations.
So should we move forward with the proposed increases, there's still the flexibility at each of the state park levels to be able to adjust throughout the seasons through demand, whatever it might be at as they need to.
For sure. And I'm talking about the $200. This is just an added factor to the discussion. I'm talking about the $200 being the cap. And typically that would be for our tiny houses. If you go back to, say, the pit house that Corey stayed in at Fremont Indian State Park.
65 plus
Yeah.
transaction.
So you're talking about $65 there. But we do need the elasticity and ability to charge at different places. Again, I'm going to go back to the amenity and the opportunity and experience that we're providing. So we price it accordingly to that. Just one of the many factors we look at.
So my only, as Joan and I are talking, my only suggestion would be maybe like a training for these park managers on RevPAR and like looking at ADR and all of that stuff, just so that they're like, because that's giving them a lot of leeway. And while there are people that will pay $200 to stay at the cabin at Steinecker, there's a lot of people who won't. And so I don't want it to go down to where like Steinecker's not renting the cabin because nobody will pay that much to stay, just because the knowledge of, hey, I need to look and see what are the cabins at that campground in town, because they change prices as well. So just maybe if we go with this, because it is giving them a lot of fluctuation on their prices. And I know they're like just looking at Wasatch and like everything there and how much they have to manage and work with and everything, they're busy and it's hard to keep track of that. So just maybe a little bit of training. And if it's not them, maybe it's their like admin or somebody, just so that they're watching those prices and they're not outpricing themselves and causing a revenue loss more than what they would have had at the lower price.
Only catering to those who have higher ability
Yeah.
to pay.
That my other question was going to be, all of a sudden, if every tiny home, pit home, cabin, teepee, whatever we've got going on now is $200 a night and that gets back to legislatures, like how's that going to react?
Yeah, and again, I want to stress that will not happen. It's based on location, demand, so many factors. I want to go back to your first statement, which is the training piece. And that's exactly why I brought it up with Jeff the other day, is that I think we've gotten to a point where there's perceived ideas about what's happening. And I think that we not that we maybe need to, but we do need to provide more input and maybe a different perspective than they see at the local park level. We do believe very strongly in local control, and we want decisions to be made at the park level closest to the visitors. They know what you're talking about. They know that when somebody comes from Vernal to Red Fleet State Park and they hear, I'd love to stay in that tiny home, but I just can't afford $200 a night. They're going to know that, and they're going to be able to communicate with those individuals and say, you know what, after Labor Day, our pricing is going to decrease to this. Yeah. We still have to maintain them, and it's very labor intensive to maintain those. It's not just, there's labor that goes into a campsite, but this is, an hour of labor, there's maintenance, there's the cost first off to buy it. So we also need to look at that, and we can't just, again, undercut our competition.
Well, there's a rate at a hotel where they're like, at that point, if I have to go below that, I'm not renting rooms because it's too expensive.
Right.
It's the same with.
I don't recoup my
costs. So that's just all. I agree. $200 a night, like at Sand Hollow, or on a busy weekend at any state park is okay. Maybe just a little training. I know the managers have a lot on their plate, so just when you have a training, it's a little training for them to be watching that, and they get busy, and just make sure that they're like watching the prices and keeping tabs on that.
I love that.
Setting it and leaving it all year.
I love that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Are we ready for a motion, Mr. Chair?
Almost. I guess
Kevin needs.
I had one more comment. I just wonder, and I don't know this, we all know how awesome these parks are. Does the general public understand that these are for profit, that we're not subsidized? I think that's probably one of the biggest problems we have is we need the general public to know, because when they come to a state park, I think they think, well, my taxes are paying for this, so it should be a lot less. How do we get that word out? Because I just think general public thinks I'm in a state park, no matter how good it is, how beautiful it is, my taxes are paying for this.
I think we've tackled that for a long time, Russ, and I think that's a great statement. We've thought about putting signs up like they do on UDOT, your tax dollars hard at work, and instead of saying tax dollars, your fees you paid are hard at work. A lot of that I think happens on the ground at our parks. Just those conversations that our seasonal staff as well as our full-time staff have with our visitors. That's the best place for those conversations to happen. And Jeff and Dave and I deal with that all the time with legislators and local community leaders. So if you have an idea, I'm all ears too.
I mean, I'm just thinking, maybe that Devin's already busy, but that could be another.
I was just telling Scott that's been, if you guys have watched any of the previous videos that we've recently been putting out about these improvement projects, that is something that we ask all the DMOs to talk about, how this money goes back into the parks. Park managers, the same thing. We just had Kevin Lewis when I interviewed him down at Gunlock and Sand Hollow last month. That's going to be part of the video in January. I do have an idea about like a hashtag My Utah Parks campaign, where it's like a similar whiteboard videos where it shows someone handing $1 to the entrance gate, and then that dollar kind of zoom the screen, and it turns into a campground. That's stuff that we're looking at doing in the next couple of years. It's just trying to find that stuff out.
And I think it's not only important to tell the story that the money is going back into the, but to talk about how the parks are entirely funded operationally by those dollars, because that still leaves the perception that there's a subsidy.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
The other piece is beyond just our visitors, but also to tell local communities. I'm surprised sometimes when I hear, really, you pay TRT and that goes into the county and city's coffers? Yeah, we pay sales tax and TNT. So that, or transit room and board taxes. So that's another piece of that too, that we not only it reinvest that money from our visitors, but we also help our local communities by bringing in not only just visitors and improving the economics of the local areas and rural areas, but we actually bring them money.
Yeah.
Would accept the motion.
I would like to we raise camping fees to a maximum of $60 and lodging fees to a maximum of $200 with the understanding that regional park managers and directors have the ability to adjust prices to whatever they feel is appropriate below those amounts.
I think we have a motion from Kevin,
I'll second that motion.
second from Russ. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one final comment, and I'm sure state park staff has thought through this as well. But with these clarifying cap increases, should that lead to any increases at the regional levels? Just that continued encouragement to make sure that information is getting out there so visitors aren't so surprised when they show up and they see that increase happening, whether that's working at the local level with the DMOs or tourism offices, local offices, whatever that might be, but just adding that comment as well.
Thank you
When
for
will
that.
this go into effect?
It has to be heard in the legislative session, and it'll be approved during the session. It'll go into effect as early as March.
So how is it heard and what's the mechanism?
So next year.
It's not a bill?
It is a bill. It's part of a large bill every year that they review, and it has tens of thousands of fees in it. So this would be two of those fees that they review.
This winter, when people are making their reservations, they're gonna know way in advance that they're gonna change. That's easy.
I would just comment and say that I remember 5 or 6 years ago, we went through this same discussion, and I had a lot of trepidation about this and giving that discretion to our park managers and not exactly knowing how that was going to take place. And then, and I would just have to say that looking back and looking at our current fee structures, I don't think that there's anything out of line or anything that's overly burdensome. And I feel good with the decisions that are taking place. And I don't exactly know the mechanisms of what's happening behind the scenes, but I think it's working. And I think that my comment would be that as we take this moving forth, if the same mechanism and maybe additional training, coordination takes place, I think we're in a good place. Any further discussion or any need to change the motion? This has been presented and seconded.
I have one comment, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I think that the fee increase makes sense. I don't object to that, but I do think that it's important to think about how this trickles through community. And as we look at housing for our employees, right, like as these tourism opportunities raise rates, it also affects the housing industry more broadly. So that's more just a comment for us to be thinking about how do we make sure employees still have housing. And I know that state parks is not going to be the one to address that, but just remembering that there's relationships.
And I think what we hear that there's a big difference between conditions in certain places versus in Moab or St. George. And I think we're being respectful already with the decision making, and we'll expect that to continue.
And we can talk more about that.
And just keeping with the knowledge, I mean, we sat through meetings last week, 2 different meetings, UT board and UOT board, and visitations down. We even heard that yesterday. And so just that they're keeping watch on what's going on and that they're not just outpricing themselves, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. I mean, as a recession comes, people have less money. It's a little harder to swipe that credit card to fill up that truck and trailer. And so just keeping a watch on it.
There's so many dynamics that go along with that, whether people stay closer or go farther away from home, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion, a second. All those in favor of this motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. All right, let's move quickly to Dave, and we've got some rules to approve. And in some ways, this isn't anything new, but just we'll revisit this and get it taken care of, right?
Yes, this is like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, but just once.
Hopefully, yeah, just once.
Yes.
And no, he's not there.
She stepped out.
Okay, I might need her assistance, but we'll get started. Do you have the motion sheet? It's not in
I do.
everybody's board packet.
We don't have a motion sheet this time.
I don't have.
Yeah.
No, I think she only put it in one person's.
Do you want that or do you want me?
No, I just
Okay.
wondered if you had.
I do.
Okay, if you look in your board packet, I don't have the same version, but you should see a chart like this. And this is, for those of you that were on the board a year ago, we combined everything that dealt with permits and permitting into one rule. So it took, if you look at this chart, I'll just explain it really quick. The green down the middle is the new rule that combined all the other rules, and that's Rule 635. And combined, the two main rules that went into it were 635 and 608. And then if you look down the left side, that's language from the old 635 rule that went into the new one. And if you look down the right side, the orange are parts from the old 608 rule that went into the various parts of the new 635 rule. And then the red boxes are just random things that we had rules spread all over our rules that said you needed a permit to do something, like to have a public address system or to have fireworks, to go metal detecting or collecting firewood, and all those. So all those individual rules, rather than being spread all over the place, we pulled them into one rule, which where all those arrows go to where the B is. So all those rules will now be and they're listed rather than spread out over many documents. And then on the far right, where the blue is, we had terminology in our rules that said special uses, but there was really no definition of what special uses were. So printed material and soliciting were considered special uses. So they move up to definite, being defined there, but then tied back to the permitting rule. So that's kind of the really broad picture of how we brought all this together. It really doesn't change the intent of anything. It just realigns the rules to make them flow better, easier to find for the public or even for our officers, rather than looking through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about a dozen rules to find. Now where is it that I have to have a permit to get firewood? Well, it's all in the permitting rule. So that was kind of the reason for putting all this together. And I still don't know if I understand it totally. Shane, our attorney, is on there. And Shane, if I get sideways, please straighten me out again. And appreciate your help. We were on the phone at 8:30 last night trying to make sure everything was in order. And thanks to Melanie for getting this back in order. What happened was, and my mind, I don't remember exactly what happened, but we couldn't find it in the minutes. It appears that when we had the motion at the last board meeting a year ago for this, we approved the R635 rule, but didn't individually approve all these other, all these other ones individually. So, but over the years, whenever we've combined rules, we've never had to go back and do that. But evidently, new staff at different levels of state government have picked that up when they reviewed this and said, no, you've got to have a motion for every deletion, every adoption, even if it's covered under one main rule. So that's why we're back at this.
So I think what we need now is, as I understand this, is for the first two is we need an amendment, a motion to, for an amendment for R65 1-604 and 605.
So that means that just a portion went out. If it's a repeal, the whole rule went away and it's all in 635. That's the difference between the repeal and the amendment.
Okay,
So wasn't 635 approved though? So that one's okay. We don't have to do anything with
So
that.
you don't have to do, it and 608 were in the minutes and approved last August. And I've already submitted those and there's 6 rules that are gonna be finalized on Monday. They'll be effective.
So we need to start with audio devices, 604. Is that? I guess maybe I need one of those sheets.
yeah, it's this one right
It's in your
here.
packet. Oh, no.
No, we only had it, it's just in Corey's packet.
I think I have another.
Do you have another
I
one?
think, you guys want to just run with that? I think.
Should I just go with that? Just,
Let's do them individually and
Okay.
just make it nice and clean if we could.
okay.
We still expect from you to have a
There
second.
was one, when you get to our 605, Shane noticed something there that we need to change
Okay.
on that one. So when you.
Okay, so that's the second one, so 604.
Do we also need to repeal 651 totally then or not? I don't think.
Yeah, and there's a motion to repeal a couple of these.
651, 609, and 651, 617 are both repeals.
3 repeals.
So can we go through those individually, and if Shane needs to give us some guidance, we can, and just make sure we do this right this time? Is that okay?
Okay,
Ready to start?
yeah, I can do it first. If the first one you can go. Motion to approve rule amendment R651-604.
I second that motion.
So we've got a motion to approve a rules amendment for R651-604 and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then we need to make a little change, Dave, to 605, is that correct?
Correct. On the 605 begging and soliciting, Shane has found in there that actually begging is protected constitutionally. So we can still require a permit for somebody to do that. It'll be under commercial use. So we'll deal with that later, but the recommendation is that we delete that whole rule 605 because soliciting moved to another location, so we can delete that part. Begging is constitutionally protected, so it should never have been a rule. So if we
we'll read the Constitution rule.
So rather than approve that -605, we're gonna repeal that 605, right?
Right. Would that be the correct term, repeal?
Yeah, if you're gonna get rid of that rule, then we'll repeal it.
Okay, so I'd accept a motion.
Okay, I move that we repeal rule amendment for R651-605.
All right, I've got a motion to
Second that.
repeal R651-605, and did I hear a second?
Yeah.
A second from Russ. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion passed. The next one is 609.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve rule to appeal R651-609.
So did you say to repeal it?
Repeal.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So I've got a motion to repeal R651-609. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Brent. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. 617 is our next rule we need to review.
A motion to approve rule repeal for R651-617.
All right, so we've got a motion from Joan to repeal R651-617. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second from Lisa. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. 620.
This one?
Yep.
I make a motion to approve rule amendment for R651-620.
All right, so from Russ, we have a motion to approve rule amendment for R651-620. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second from Alicia, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion passes. And now we need to address 622. This looks like the suggestion is to repeal that.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the rule to repeal for R651-622.
Thank you. So we have a motion from Alicia to approve rule repeal for R651-622. Is there a second? Just a second from Kevin. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so motion passes. And lastly, we address 623. It looks like the suggestion to repeal as well.
I motion to approve rule repeal for R651-623.
All right, got a motion from Joan to approve rule repeal for R651-623. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Russ. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion passes. So
Thank you very much.
hopefully that
And
cleaned
Thank
things
you,
up.
Shane and Melanie, for all your work on getting this put back together.
Okay. If we did something we need to follow up on, let us know, but hopefully that takes good care of us. Thank you, everyone. All right, well, let's move on to the strategic plan. We appreciate the work that's been done to date and also the comments from board members. Thank you for reviewing that and providing feedback. Dave?
I just had a text from Shane, so I want to make
Sure, was there something we need to do there? Is he not able to chime in?
I was texting him while.
Chime in if you want.
So, okay.
Can you hear me?
We do okay. Yes, we can hear you.
I just wanted to clarify that the amendments that the board just voted on were included in the materials that were provided to the board, and those amendments will be posted as part of the publicly available materials after the meeting concludes, in case anyone is unclear as to what the amendments actually are.
Perfect.
They have them too. They have copies of all of them in their packet.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you, Shane.
Yes. All right, Dave?
Okay. Switch modes. All right, the strategic plan. I can't believe it's been, 3 months since the last board meeting?
Yeah.
And we shared this and our vision for updating the strategic plan. And thank you for those that submitted comments and suggestions. I think we tried to incorporate those. And hopefully you've had a chance to look this over. I know it only got to you a couple days ago, but hopefully you had a chance to look it over. It's been a lot of work, thanks to Susan and Devin. And I think Lindsay had a hand in it, and Parks Pass. Parks Pass is the one that Scott's talked about a lot with our fee collection and all that, but they do a lot of other good things, and they have graphic designers and folks that help out, and all our folks are very busy. So I'm glad they were able to help with this. So I guess I want to just turn the time over to Susan for a few minutes to talk about the plan and where we're at with it.
Where I can stand. A backbending couch. Feels good to stand.
Hi, and I appreciate everybody's comments. They were very helpful, and our leadership and admin got together and worked on this. We didn't want to make substantive, just a total rewrite of this. We really wanted to continue with this nimble, as Shane likes to call it, planning process that's flexible and easier to update. And with the advent of, technology and everybody's doing everything on their phones and the internet, we wanted to take the format to something that's not booklet, that's something that's easy to read on the phone and easy to translate into a web page or whatever it is that Lindsay and Devin may want to do with this in the future. And so that was our goal. And so you can see it structurally changed a little bit, but in truth, not too much. And so I just wanted to discuss a couple of the changes that you may have seen in there. We reworked it a little bit. We took the goals and we changed them up a little bit. And really the goals of state parks, and you heard Jeff talk about it today, and it's kind of a philosophy, are financial self-sufficiency, facility care, and customer service. And we felt that that was very important to, tell everyone, our staff, our visiting public, that these are our core values and goals for this agency and where we want to see our parks move forward and incorporate our overall vision for the whole state park system into that. And so we created that section for the goals, and then we moved what you guys had previously worked on, because there's some of you here that previously worked on this. We moved that section into objectives. And the thought behind the objectives are things that we find important that help reach those goals. And we felt that they were something that quite a few of them could be used by parks to incorporate into their planning process. And so those are overall objectives that we strive to achieve through our operations management and just customer service. Again, trying to keep it flexible and nimble. We were careful. We tried to combine things that were saying the same thing, and we wanted to keep them very general and overarching and let the parks go in and really refine how they want to meet those objectives in their parks plans. And that's the next initiative, as Dave outlined in the previous meeting with the steps for the planning process. And it's pretty much ready to go. There are a couple changes that Lindsay's going to make. She's going to clean it up a little bit, add maybe a couple more photos and put a back page on it. But other than that, we think we're here with the format. So we're here to answer any of your questions or your comments or.
Can we still take comment?
Yeah.
So the one thing I saw lacking and missing, and I didn't pick up on it until I reread it a second time, but you don't mention this board anywhere in this whole document. So aren't we supposed to apply this strategic plan and what we approve here and you bring to us that enhances the park? So how to apply the strategic plan doesn't mention this board. And the other places where you say develop and maintain local inter-public partnerships and whatever, again, you're telling the park people they can go to legislators and governor's office and local officials, but we're visiting the parks and they're interacting with us too. So I just thought you needed to maybe include this board in this strategic plan, that the parks can come to us when we're visiting their sites and interact with us, as well as I think we need to apply this strategic plan when we approve stuff and hear stuff here. So that was just a general comment that I saw. And also, I didn't see recertification. Do your public enforcement people have to recertify? I saw training and all this other stuff, but I didn't see that you support recertification for the officers, enforcement.
It's required by law.
Yeah.
Every year, they have to have 40 hours of training and.
But are you supporting that by paying for that recertification? I just thought maybe that wasn't in there.
Yeah.
We included that under the objectives under LE. I don't think it specifically says recertification, but I think it says
That would be-
laws and rules or.
We try to keep, general.
Sure.
General.
Just a comment.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing was the map. Is this part of the strategic plan or not?
Yeah.
So I didn't see monuments. I saw Danger Cave, but I didn't see any of the others. And I went to Bridal Veil, knowing that's a monument, because I had time to kill before I got to Deer Creek. And I'm going, I see Danger Cave, but I know we have done other monuments, but they're not.
Old Iron Town, Danger
Yeah.
Cave, and Bridal right now.
But I almost saw Danger Cave on here.
Devin's making notes, so we'll add those to that.
Okay. So other than, I want to talk to Jeff about his letter, other than that, I think everything.
Only good to see, right, Claudia?
And maybe in the mandate, there'd be just an opportunity for a little section describing the board's function. That might be a place where that could be inserted.
Well, I'm not, I love the strategic plan, but I'm going, aren't we part of this strategic plan? I mean, we give reports on visiting the parks and we're interacting with park managers and, I had a request from Hiram State Park and worked with Scott on that. He had the right to interact with me and tell me what his needs were, but we weren't mentioned in here. So
Okay.
I just thought that was kind of an oversight that I would like to see added.
Perhaps a simple addition to Claudia's point might be, especially where this is a flexible document, there is another map that was made that shows where all the parks the board members represent. Maybe it's just also adding that at the tail end of the document. And that can just change as board members change too.
Well, so it's made by the court. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the court districts. There's 9 different court districts right throughout Utah, and that's how the boundaries are defined. So if we could easily, instead of putting names, just define it by that, and then it wouldn't have to be updated.
Timeless as much.
Yeah, but we could do that.
So like that, but just.
I think their
Instead of the name.
seats, the seats stay the same. It's just people in the seat change.
Yeah.
That could just be in the description of the board, right? Not on a map necessarily.
Other comments? Appreciate feedback.
I think it looks great. A lot of work's been put into it, and I think you want it to be timeless, and I think it looks like it. So with those changes that have been suggested.
And I like the term nimble. I mean, you still want it to be something that can be modified, but also carry forward into the future.
And it's not super long, like somebody can sit down and read it in 5 minutes and
Right.
know what the.
Understand.
I think what an important time to put this out there with the changes, like, so people know, like, here, this is where we are and what we're doing going forward. Kudos.
Yeah, like Susan mentioned, this is the base document for each park's planning process. So that's why it's kept general. It's kept easily changed, and then the parks adapt their, which we'll talk about in a few minutes here, but talk about the planning template.
Susan, thanks for the hard work. You get a lot of varied assignments and projects, and we appreciate all that you do personally and with the support from staff, Salt Lake and beyond in the regions, the people who signed. Appreciate that. Do you need a motion or anything at this point, or is this just an update, or what do we need for you right now?
I don't know
It's not final, right? But would you
well,
like
it would be final if we made
Based
these
on these
changes.
changes.
So I don't know if you want to make a motion that you approve it with these changes, or do you want to see the changes before you approve it? I guess that's up to you.
What are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with, is the board comfortable with making a motion to approve this based on these changes?
I'll make
Go ahead,
a
Natalie.
motion to approve with those changes. And I'm sorry, I just had one additional thought as well, based off of an earlier conversation we had. But we were talking about how the parks are self-pay. Perhaps in the start of the letter, I need to reread now the document thinking about that piece. But maybe there's somewhere that could be included, especially as we're trying to get that message out about how the parks are funded and how we continue to improve the parks.
Well, yeah, it's
Sorry
it's
for
the
the
last,
last piece.
it's the last heading before the map, so we could take some of the language and put it in Jeff's letter, I guess. It's the
Generate sufficient revenue to meet their operational expenses.
And is the self-sufficiency on the three-legged stools a big part there?
Correct. Just highlighting it, but I would make a motion to approve the strategic plan with the recommended changes.
Okay, we got a motion from Natalie to accept the plan. As changes suggested, a second from Claudia. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes, and thank you. Excited for that.
Did you want us to talk about the planning template
Please, yeah.
while Susan's right here?
Yeah.
And leadership team, admin, Dave and I have been working on a planning template, as you know, and we did tell you that we would bring it to the next board meeting for you to look at. So this is the draft version. It hasn't been reviewed yet fully by our admin or by our leadership team. They wanted to see where we were going with it. It was kind of a challenge because it's one of those things where unfortunately there's a lot to planning, but if you say too much, people will shut off. So how you're going to inform the park manager on what you need to do for this first plan without being too wordy. So this is kind of where we're at. The first page just sort of discusses what we're doing, why we're doing it, and kind of lays out what we expect of our staff. The next one describes the planning process and has Dave's graph in it. By the way, he did that in Excel. And then we actually start into
I don't know what that means, but that's the only thing I know how to use.
We actually start into the general management plan, and the whole idea is to give them script, to give them the idea of where they're going. So anything that you see is bold and green, italicized, and we can make that different colors too. I don't know how many of our staff may be blue-green or red-green colorblind, but anything in there gets deleted. So it's just information for them to move forward on and learn how to do it. And speaking with Shane, our attorney, he mentioned that those old plans are basically sort of rules, and we're going to need our park managers to go look at their old plans, review them for consistency with operation. Have they been successful? Are they an issue still? Anything in their mission or their issues and recommendations? If they're successful, discuss it. If they're not and they need to maintain it, then they need to bring it through and discuss it in this plan. And the whole idea is to get a planning template that moves forward, that can be updated every year or every 3 years, depending on the park and the situation, and make it easy that they don't have to always go back and go to the really old plans. Some of them are 20 years old, 25 years old. Some are even older. And just move forward. And as a new park manager comes in, they can add their flavor to the park and what they see as important and their goals. And that's where we were going with this. It does, so the first section is really them summarizing what went on in the past. If there's anything here that needs to be moved forward into the other plan, they're to take it and move it forward into the objectives, strategies, and success measures section. There's also a public outreach sections. Jeff thought it was very important that there be public outreach. It may depend on each park because, each park is very different on how much the community really gets out there and gets involved. Like Paiute will never be like Wasatch. So, that's kind of up between the region manager and the park manager. In this document, we really want the region managers to assist. And they can talk to me, they can talk to Dave or Scott or Jeff, any of us for assistance on this. But we want them to be, working as a team to direct the future of these parks. So the public outreach, they should really get together and discuss it with their community, with their region managers, with any of us that they want to talk to, with you, with the board, and look at what they're going to say they want to do, look at their goals and get input, and also get feedback. So that's that section. And then the meat and the potatoes are the park goals and objectives. And again, this is the things that they see depending on the park, either annually or every few years that they want to accomplish. The whole point of this is to take the strategic plan that we developed with y'all and incorporate it into their park management. So you will see each of those objectives in here. We don't put individual things under there. That some of those may work and can move forward, and we tell them to look at those. But really, this is how each one of these parks are going to address these objectives and meet the goals of self-sufficiency, customer service, and facility care. And that's kind of where we're going with it. And that's where we left off. How much more we will add, we will, it probably depend on the park. Some parks will probably want to add photos or graphics, and some parks will be a little bit more bare bones. Like again, Paiute will never be like Wasatch. You have any questions? It's kind of where we're at right now.
How will these eventually be approved? These don't come to this board, is it through the regional manager or how?
The individual park plans,
Uh-huh.
I think they should be approved through this board.
Yeah, they're gonna come to you.
So 43 of them, or 46 of them coming in the, probably the next year and a half, hopefully.
Well, and there's local public meetings, so there's opportunity for involvement there as well.
Well, we encourage our park managers to meet with local county commissioners, city mayors, whatever they're several times a year. So that's part of that public process as well.
And so when you sit down with your park managers annually for your employee evaluations, a lot of that is going right back to this, right? And the
Right.
goals and
That's one of the
objectives.
things, part of this planning process is why reinvent stuff we're already doing. We already meet with our park managers annually. They have their performance, their goals and their UPM, that can all be incorporated in this whole process.
Other questions for Susan or Dave?
We plan on, I didn't mention it in my update, but we plan on having a staff meeting with all the park managers, and I think it's October 26th in Fillmore. And the big part of that will be taking this and having some training on how to incorporate their park plan into the strategic plan and the requirements they need to make, carrying forward the basic rule or the legal requirements in their old plans and moving them forward into the new plans. So, because we don't want to miss anything that was, required for them to do in their old plan. Those need to be carried forward if they haven't met it or they can't articulate why it's not an issue anymore.
Do you want a board approval on this template at this point, or do you need to make some changes?
I don't think
or
that's
just-
something that would need an approval. It's just, we want to give you a heads up, last time we told you we were doing this. If you see something, you want to look through it, see something, we're open for suggestions for sure.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Let's look
Thank
good.
you, Susan.
All right, looking forward. Our next item on our agenda is looking at our next meeting date and location. I think we had a tentative date, didn't we, in November?
I think we were doing the 9th and 10th,
Yeah.
and I think it's
We're
Natalie's
looking-
area.
Well, and weren't we looking at kind of going into parts unknown over Kodachrome or someplace like that?
I think we talked about Moab.
Moab?
Yep.
Oh, and, okay.
So Utah Raptor, I think
Maybe
we
even
talked
getting
about
up there
that.
down to, Edge of Cedars maybe even, and talk to the employee of the year.
Here's some turkey calls.
Yes.
So 9th and 10th of November.
Kind of the same format, opportunities for some tours, visits on the 9th and the meeting on the 10th. Okay. Natalie, can you coordinate that with Megan?
Happy to do it.
Sounds great. All right. I guess we got a lunch break and recess and adjournment. Adjournment of the boat tour. Okay, so we'll go ahead and I guess I need a motion to recess the meeting if we're going to follow Robert's rules.
I need a motion on the next meeting. That's on my sheet.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So we've got a meeting location and date set for November 9th and 10th in Moab. I'd accept a motion to approve that. Is that where you're going, Claudia?
Well, my sheet says action. So
Yeah.
yes, I'll make a motion that we set our next meeting for November, what was it?
9th and
9th
10th,
and 10th in Moab.
business meeting on the 10th. Okay,
Well, I don't know that the intention was to do a recess and then re-adjourn the meeting, right? We were going to.
Actually, adjourned.
Yeah, we're adjourning and then, I just wrote it down.
Yeah,
I did it from the
I think
last.
that was the intention, so.
Okay, so we've got let's back up one step. We got a motion to approve our next business meeting for Moab on officially the business meeting will be on the 10th and the tour on the 9th. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
A second from Alicia. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And let's go ahead and if we could conclude our meeting before lunch. So I'd accept a motion to not recess, to adjourn.
Yeah. I'll make a motion. Adjourn the meeting.
Okay, motion from Alicia. Second.
Yes.
Second from Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and all the work and
We're gonna eat out there.